friends. My name is Rachel GNS Middle. Gilbert and Sullivan is my middle name, and my middle name is my last name. And this with me is William Remmers. Well, he's not actually with me. He's electronically with me. Do you have a middle name, William Remmers?
Yeah. It's just S.
Just S?
Yeah.
Is that spelled like JUSTESS?
Yep.
Great. And we are here on behalf of Forbear Theatre to explore the magic of the Gilbert and Sullivan operas by very pedantically ranking every element of them. And today we are looking at the baritone arias because Will is a baritone.
Do I have to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's probably right.
I thought I'd call in Will to be my expert, my consulting expert on the baritone arias. So what I've done is I have given Will my scores, and then he scored them using the same parameters. But you also added another category of your own, didn't you?
I added a category which I didn't put into our overall calculation, which was for performer enjoyment.
I see.
I will say that particular category did not dramatically affect the order of my songs.
Sometimes that happens. I found that with other videos. That's why I stopped using the enjoyment category, because I found out, as I was saying in another video, it was just like capitalism. All it did was make good ones even better. Like, it didn't actually bring anyone up and make much of a difference. So the regular categories for this one are marks out of 20 for music. We have marks out of 10 for lyrics. And I think in this instance, that really is just the poetry of the lyrics, just how beautiful the poetry is. We've also got a mark out of 10 for narrative importance, a mark out of 10 for dramatic impact, and a mark out of 10 for comedic value / comedic impact. Because those are the things that I found these baritone arias to have. And I think that if you tick all those boxes, the combination of those really makes for the best baritone aria. And I'm excited to know what these scores are. So Will's added mine and his scores together, and I don't know what the results are. So I'm excited. And I gave them to him, I think 2 weeks ago. So I can't even really remember where I ranked all of these. So this is going to be a hoot.
Well, perhaps before we get cooking, I think we want to give that honorable mention to a song that might as well be on the list, but like by virtue of the fact that you included the Duke song in Patience. We want to.
I did, yeah.
We want to give a mention to a song from HMS Pinafore that exists in a similar state, which is
called "Reflect, My Child."
Yeah.
Which I have never heard in my life. It just so happens that 2 productions of Patience I've been in have used that Duke song, so I know it relatively well, but I'd actually forgotten to put Reflect My Child in the list. So we're just mentioning it now, but I don't particularly know that song. Is it a good one?
Yeah, it's lovely. You can read about on the GS archive some information about how it was reconstructed from the band parts. Ultimately,
cool.
As it goes, the vocals did not exist and the second violin did not exist, but they figured it out based on everything else. And
of course,
so like the Duke song, you have to like guess a little bit, and some wonderful work was done. And we could put the link to that information in the
yeah.
But the recording of it that you can find on YouTube, certainly, or on the CD, is by the New D'Oyly Carte Opera Company. They went through a considerable effort on the New D'Oyly Carte range to include cut material and lost things. That's the first time I had heard the Duke song on their Patience.
That's great.
And they have like the alternate Act 2 finale of Pinafore on it as well. So if you want to get your Reflect My Child on, you can check.
I don't know about this. Oh, about the alternate. I don't know about that.
Do you know these like 3 happy couples on the same day, the whole thing? Like there's a sung.
Yeah. Oh no, I do know that. Sorry, I do know that. Yeah.
Of course you do.
That's weird. That is. Yeah, I would. I mean, I couldn't sing it for you right now, but yeah, I was aware of that.
They're little things.
I thought you actually meant the Act 2 finale itself was just a totally different number, but no, I know that there's that bit.
There's an alternate version where they just cut a little buttercup out of the ending because no one wants to hear it for a fourth time. Sullivan wrote a letter to Gilbert saying we have to get rid of it. So
did he actually?
No. So
I was going to say.
So Reflect My Child is lovely, and it has a duet for Josephine with the captain in the refrain. So you could even argue it's a duet. So I think that it's cuspy, and because we can't really know for sure 100% what it sounds like a Thespis situation, that we know more. We know arguably almost as much as the Duke song. Mm-hmm. The basic reasoning is that I think that you can infer more of the melody of the Duke song than you can infer the melody of Reflect My Child.
Right.
So there's a little more guesswork on that one, but I think it's a lovely tune. And if you want to give the captain and Josephine another moment, in terms of where it appears in the show, it happens just about after her Sorry My Lot aria. And in the Bradley, you can read the full text of that duet or go onto YouTube and listen to it. So let's just give that an honorary last place, saying, you exist, Reflect My Child.
The thing is, all of these numbers were so strong anyway, that there's not a single number in this list that I think is even close to being bad. Like, they're all great numbers.
I almost agree with you.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see how that goes. So Reflect My Child, you get an A for existing once.
Well done.
And I think with that, should we look at the list proper?
Let's get started, yes.
So you don't know what I'm about to say is last place.
No.
And we can, if you'd like, if this is fun for you, we can still go through our separate scores, but we'll both need a second to pull that song up.
Oh no, I've got mine.
You got
so
it?
I found mine, but I found mine, but I've deliberately not looked at it because I want to be surprised.
Perfect. So here's the deal. In 24th place, unequivocally, is from Utopia Limited, a king of autocratic power with
I also put that one in last place.
56 points. That was
out of 120.
I will tell you that is 20. That is 23rd place for me out of 24. So I have one song ranked lower than that.
What?
Yep. So we'll get to that one. Generally speaking, there are going to be some times where we're on the same page, and some times where we're thrown for curveballs. So a king of autocratic power does seem to, though, you had it 24th, I had it 23rd. Do you want to tell us your scores?
King of autocratic power, I gave it a 12 out of 20 for music. I thought it was less good than Sullivan's average, but it's not terrible. I gave it a 6 for lyrics. Again, I think that my ones that get 6 are usually if I think that's about the standard I'd probably write a song. Like, it's fine, but it's not mind-blowing. I gave it a 7 for narrative importance. You do get to meet the king for the first time, and it's nice for him to have his moments, so I understand the importance of that. But I don't think it's very dramatic. I only gave it a 6 for that. And I gave it a 5 for comedic value, because there's that line about it does not seem to interfere with our enjoyment much, which is kind of a kind of joke, but the chorus sing it, not him. And I know there's a second verse, which I can't remember the lyrics of offhand, but I did read them when I was doing these scores, and I was not blown away by those either. But I don't mind the song. I think it's pretty great, but, just came last for me.
I feel like this is one that I like less, taking it out of context, than when it appears in the show. I think it's perfectly lovely. Right?
Exactly. No, when it appears in the show, it fully owns its place, and it's absolutely fine. I do not begrudge its position, and it's got such beautiful stuff before and after it that I don't really mind that we've got a moment of not so sublime loveliness.
The entirety of number 4, which is the whole Quaff the Nectar suite, with the duet and the aria and Lady Sophie. I think that's just stunning, start to finish. And for a show that people call so talky, there are 2, that and then a section in Act 2 of like tons of music in a row with no talking. And I think those are always the strongest parts of any of the shows anyway. And this is definitely up there. I mean, I think that the introduction, as you come out of Quaff the Nectar, we sort of have to include in a way in my brain, because you might not count it in your chorus list. The transition from Quaff the Nectar into this is really nice. You have this bum bum ba.
Yes, actually, in fact, I forgot to mention that actually that is the bit that musically I thought, oh wow, I love that. And then it's like,
my gosh, there's this wonderful.
I absolutely love that. Yeah.
The brass enters. Yum bum 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 ba da dun 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 fwa 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 fwa.
Yes, it's the fwas. Yeah, like fwa 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 fwa. Yeah,
intense.
That is
Sullivan's
amazing,
working with 3 trombones and he's making them work. So my rankings here, 10 for music. So, I mean, I think that I had to, there's no way you and I can think of these numbers the same way. We're going to have to both treat them as separate types of things. And from my perspective, I started this whole process by going, okay, what's a 20 or what's a 10? Like what's my top? And then kind of ranking everything from there. So this is,
I give very few things less than a 12 and I probably should.
I've got some low scores on this. So here's a 10.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, I think that I tried to really consider it from when the number starts, which is bum, ba, da, 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 or the intro before he sings.
Yeah.
I gave it a 2 for lyrics. Again, we have different systems.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
no, that's fair enough. As long as you're consistent within yourself.
I think I am.
That's fine. Yeah.
Part of that is because I think we have to count the second verse. And I think the second verse...
Let me remind myself what that is. You go on. I'm just going to find it in my Bradley.
Stupendous when we rouse ourselves to strike, resistless when our tyrant thunder peals. We often wonder what obstruction's like and how a contradicted monarch feels. So you see,
for me, I actually quite enjoy the scansion of that. I don't think it's terribly sensical, but I do like the words used, if that makes sense. So I don't know why you go there too, actually. Explain.
This is one of those things where I have to kind of count the lyrics. The lyrics and dramatic impact and narrative importance all kind of have a tied value in some ways. And a lot of these songs are, as we know in GNS, here's a guy. Here's who he is. Yeah. We've heard about King Paramount. He's introducing himself. One of the biggest issues with Utopia Limited as a show, in terms of like trying to consider it a show, which I kind of don't at this point. I consider it a wonderful cavalcade of material that we get to enjoy. Like I'm not that interested in plot. George Bernard Shaw had a positive review of Utopia Limited when it was premiered, and he does have a mention of that, of saying that he was grateful there was little plot. He's like, this is great. Little plot, fantastic. But Paramount is a very inconsistently drawn character in terms of, like, he's apparently a despot. He's a despot, but like in name only, because apparently he gives everybody what they want. And people make fun of him all the time, but he makes that happen himself. It's very muddy. But
and in fact, that is actually a reason why I hate the narrative in First You're Born, but we'll get to that.
Yes.
But because I just find it, because he's set up to be like such a different kind of person, and then he's making the same tired old sexist jokes. Find him dull.
I think he's the kind of character where he has like 6 contradicting character traits, and you need to just have like 2. Do you need like 2 of them?
Yeah.
So in some ways, I feel like people are always like, oh, we have to cut the plots that go nowhere. It's like, that's fine. At least those plots happen and they make sense when they happen. And I don't care that they don't come back. And that's life, isn't it? Sometimes you just forget you're in love with the princess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's better when the plots do have a clear arc, but sure. I don't particularly mind. It's just that it's when like characters aren't, it's when characters aren't given conclusions that I find egregious. Like Constance, that's what I don't like.
Let me explain my 2 for lyrics a little bit more.
Yeah.
What Buffett's contradiction deals and how a thwarted monarch feels, we probably shall never know. The sentiment here I kind of like, but this is one of those lyrics that's so hip for the room that this whole second verse is basically about like, I'm a powerful monarch. I'm able to destroy other nations apparently, which why do they need Fitzbattleaxe and Captain Corcoran to increase their army to, if that's the case, like they seem like.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean.
But that said,
I do see what you mean.
That said, if we take the lib as strict, Scafio at the end says, now that the army and navy are so good, like war is impossible because no one wants to fight us. So apparently Utopia is a warring nation as insofar as Scafio is saying we got to get back to war. So apparently they're really good at war, but want to improve themselves through British means. It gets a 2. What Buffett's contradiction deals, how anybody's expected to understand some of this text.
I do agree that even though the poetry is quite nice, it is just completely nonsensical. It is a bit like the Duke song in that regard, actually, that you can literally look at the words on the page and be like, I have no idea what this is about.
Right, and the first verse, the first verse is funny because in a way it's less chunky. Like, for example, whose rule is paramount o'er land and sea, a presence of unutterable awe. Like, that's more generic versus the second verse when he's like talking a little more specifically about, we can really destroy anybody. And there's something about the second verse that's a little too about other nations, whereas the first one is a little more about him. And there is a jocularity to the way that Sullivan sets this piece, especially the way it switches to judge by what I see and hear. He's basically like, I'm a jerk, but everybody's having a nice time. So maybe it doesn't deserve a 2, but I'm glad it's in last place. Narrative importance, it gets a 4.
But you said it's not in last place. You said there's something else.
Well, for us together as a team. Narrative importance, I give a 4. I think I tend to rank low the introduction songs, unless I feel like the narrative really hinges upon that character being that way. And the narrative, and if I could bring this up in terms of my interpretation of it, for example, Time Was, Dr. Daly's song in Sorcerer, tells you so much about who that guy is. And I feel like the narrative of the Sorcerer it's like the plot synopsis wouldn't usually include Dr. Daly, but he's in so much of it, and his plot is important to your enjoyment of the show. I think his through line is crucial. So in a way, I feel like a song like Time Was in introducing Dr. Daly is more narratively impactful because you follow the things you learn in that song a little more. Whereas what you learn about King Paramount in this song doesn't get you much of anywhere in terms of because it's all upended so confusingly. And
it's because the story's not terribly clear. Also, the characters aren't terribly clear. It's a bit like Gondoliers. It's not particularly clear how people's characteristics further the plot. And actually, if it wasn't for Donnell and the Gondoliers, it would just be a complete nightmare.
Everyone
honestly,
everyone would just be sitting around.
Yeah,
the dramatic...
He's the only person that actually drives the plot in the Gondoliers. But like Utopia Limited, I guess it's Sarah actually. Most of the time, because she's the one that comes on and introduces the guys and does stuff.
Well, perhaps we should talk about the fact that we're going to do Utopia Limited.
Yes, we should.
So you know that I work with you in the UK with Forbear.
I did know that. Yeah.
We do that a lot. I run a group in New York City called Utopia Opera, which long-standing New Yorkers might remember. It was once called Utopia Unlimited Opera Company in its early years. Yeah, I know.
I get it.
Definitely one of those. And after all these years, we are finally producing Utopia Unlimited, and it will be in a gala concert as our comeback show after 3 years of hibernation. And this will be on April 1st and 2nd of the year 2023 in New York City. And you will be playing the role of Princess Zara.
I will.
And I will be your
I'm very excited. I am most excited about it. As I said in my soprano characters videos, I've never played Princess Zara, and I absolutely love the music, and I cannot wait to sing it.
It'll be good. And
it's going to be great.
So I'll be playing Paramount, and you and I will probably discuss at length ways in which we can find our own ways to make our interpretations concise. If this comes down to adjusting the dialogue lib a little bit, people have done it before, so I think that may happen. But I'm like, I don't normally like to cut music. I usually like to cut some of the text.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page in that regard.
But I'm a little on the fence. I think I might.
Music.
I'm not sure I'm going to do 2 verses of King of Autocratic Power.
I really wouldn't. I mean,
Again, the only reason I would is if it's the only thing we would have cut. Then it feels like, well, that extra 30 seconds is worth the bragging rights. But
yeah, that's true.
Maybe I have to add a drum kit. I'll point out there's this great metafiction cabaret in the German-speaking world has a surreal reinterpretation of Utopia that I shared with you.
I remember you playing that to me a while ago, yeah.
And this King of Autocratic Power is one of the best songs on it.
Bei Tag und Nacht steh ich an der Spitze ohne Netz. Den schmalen Grat der Gerechtigkeit passier ich ohne Sicherheit, auch wenn es mir das Herz zerbricht. Wenn ich mal wank, dann fang ich mich, doch hoff ich, es stört sicherlich die öffentliche Freude nicht.
Nein, nein, es stört doch sicherlich die öffentliche Freude nicht.
It's got two verses, it's got a drum kit, and it really flows, and the drum kit actually allows like a little more variety of dynamic. So that recording in many ways was one of those things that changed my perspective a bit of how this song could feel. So maybe we'll get there. The dramatic impact, though, for now is a 2. And the reason I gave it a 2 is because it's standing next to stuff that I think hits you harder.
Because I guess when I was giving it a 6, I was also comparing it against, like, I don't know, now I can't think of an example of a really boring song, but like, love duets. They'd be like 2s, 3s. So I gave a 2, I think, to Nicemus and Sparkian. I gave that a 2.
Oh, well, that's
you know what I mean? So I'm kind of thinking of other ones I've done, but as long as you're consistent in what you're doing, it's fine.
I think so. I think that for this one, my dramatic impact is sort of like, how likely am I to think about that song after the show?
Yeah. I can see that.
Did it impact my dramatic evening? Comedic value, a 2. I appreciate the
I can see that.
But I think that I've deliberately gone rangy. Like, I have scores from 1 to 10 on comedic value on this list.
I think I should be more like that, because then it would be easier to rank them at the end, because I get loads of ties all the time. So I need to learn from that and be more like that.
I looked at your scores and noticed that you have like 6 ties, and it's
ridiculous.
I decided to do everything I could to not. So I
had one 5-way tie.
Brutal. But then you figured it out. So my ultimate score here was a 20, and yours was a 36. So we see that we start our little pathway towards where we're going. But anyway, we're going to get into some more Utopia Limited now, right away. 23 on the final tabulation. It scored 22 on my list. And on yours was something else. It is A Wonderful Joy, Our Eyes to Bless by Mr. Goldberry in Act 2 of Utopia Limited. So give us
no problems here. I'm not surprised that came so low. I do not like this song. I really like it musically, especially the big bum bumps in the middles and in the middles of the verses. So I find it musically interesting, and I love that bridge. Yeah, I love that bridge section, especially the start of it, because to me it sounds like kind of vaguely Rodgers and Hammerstein. It sounds very modern, that bit. And I love that tension that he creates just by da 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 da. That, that bit. I can't remember the words.
No, you're absolutely right. It's one of those moments where you can see him heading to the next century. Sullivan.
Absolutely. Like it sounds, so I love it musically, and that's why it didn't come last. But I find it's so unfunny. I mean, I still gave it a 5 because I'm too kind. But I don't that joke about perhaps the occasional maiden over. It's like, I think you only find it funny if you know cricket rules. Maybe everyone just knew cricket rules. I don't know, but I just find it quite objectifying and quite boring. And for a lyricist who's usually very good at not objectifying women, I find it odd. I actually find it a bit uncomfortable to listen to personally. It's like, because it's on the surface, it's complimentary, but it's really not. I gave it a 5 for dramatic impact. I gave it a 6 for narrative importance because I do think that subplot with the twins is important, and that, I guess, helps them to change their mind about the situation. I gave it a 6 for lyrics. I think the poetry is quite nice. I just find it deeply unfunny and a bit uncomfortable, to be honest. Even though it's pretty musically. What do you think?
Yeah, this song, I feel like Mr. Goldberry upends his entire personality by singing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in a way, he'd be better as a cold, asexual businessman. But yes. I think for me, I prefer this subplot if it's not romantic. If it's just these two guys are like, no, we can tell you nice things about femininity that maybe will make you feel like you don't have to listen to Lady Sophie, who is definitely villainized. They call her the dragon, right? So they're not into Lady Sophie. So even like
I think it's also really weird how the joke is set up that they're behaving like English people, and then these people come and tell them, oh no, English people aren't like that. And it's like, oh,
Lady Sophie is
it's really weird.
Is not a flower of progress. She's just like a weird interloper that like gets it wrong.
Yeah.
Which is weird because
I just find it a bit of a weak end to that joke, which I think is so clever. Like, honestly, those twins entering and singing that song and just their characters, I think that says so much about Britishness. And then it comes to such a wet end, so Gilbert's usually so good at satire. And this kind of attempt at truthfulness just kind of comes off as cringy, I think.
100%. The fact that you've hit the nail on the head there. The fact that it's like, who are these guys and why is their sense of Britishness naturalistic and normal? When, if anything, they're still the weirdos. Like, I will say there's one thing that, about this song that I found made it a little, we cut the tension a bit, is making it a duet for the two guys. I've seen it done, and we did it in Savoy.
Yes, we did that.
2016, with a little bit of harmony at the end. But it's still a little odd. I mean, I will say I have a love for the way the scene starts with the two guys just shooting the breeze as if they're like smoking cigarettes on the steps. Like, that'll wear off young. Like, that whole scene can feel.
Oh, no, that. I hate that.
If you make them not creepy, what if Dromley and Goldberry are just a couple? What if
I see what you mean? Like, if it's not at all predatory, that does make it slightly less problematic.
Yeah, let's just decide that Goldberry and Dromley are a couple. Done. It's okay. It's now canon.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh well, you two girls should learn a little bit of something. Yeah, I don't know. We'll teach you.
I guess you can still. I guess that they can still be evil capitalists at the same time, even if they do have a very wholesome relationship.
Of course, people have multitudes. Yeah, these lyrics are dumb. I gave them a 3. Musically, I gave it a 12. Musically, I gave it a 12.
Oh, so you were less generous than me, because I love the music of this one. I find it really exciting, but
it's like a 3.5-minute song. So I think that it's one of those cases.
It is long.
Now, I'm going to have a consistent rule, which is when Sullivan is strophic and doesn't change the way the verses sound, I get a little bored. And unless it's a really like consistently interesting patter song, but there are some songs in GNS where I go, oh my gosh, the third verse, please be different. This one does that. So I give him credit. But this is definitely a one where you could think, okay, do we cut the second verse? In a weird way, the bridge verse, the third verse, doesn't work without having had one thing twice. It's like a pop song. Verse, chorus, bridge. Yeah. And Sullivan kind of gets that. And then when people often like cut a middle verse of something, it doesn't always help. The narrative importance is a 4. Again, I think insofar as it moves the ladies along.
I think I was too generous in retrospect, but it's still second bottom. So
Dramatic impact a 3 and comedic value a 2. You're right. Maiden over.
Yeah, no, I should have given it less. It really is bad.
Well, if we look at our complete scores, it has a 61 versus 56 for the previous song.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could have been less generous and it still could have been in the same position. Overall, I gave it a 24 and you gave it a 37. So
yeah, I mean, I think at least because I've been consistent in myself because I'm just always too kind.
So let's move on to something I'm very excited about getting into.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of our first upsets. Here is a song that appears rather high on your list and rather low on mine.
And it ended up here?
What
did you give it to put it here?
This is a song I gave 20. This is my last place song.
Where did I put it?
You gave this song a 44 and you put it in 10th place. It is from HMS Pinafore, He Is an Englishman.
Do you really hate this?
I really hate this.
I just think it's like Gilbert's best satire.
It is so
And it's so dramatic. Yeah, like the music, it's like average.
I mean, for one thing,
like lyrically, it's so clever. It's not necessarily good poetry. It's just bitingly clever. Come on.
The gall to make us hear this twice and to end the show with it.
The gall.
How dare you?
What's your problem with it?
It's so boring.
Oh, you're kidding me. Okay, I'll tell you what I gave it. So I love this one. I gave it a 13 musically. I don't think it's great, but it's fine. Gave it a 9 for lyrics. And I gave it a 7 for narrative importance. It's so important to the story. And I gave it an 8 for dramatic impact. He is an Englishman, for he is an Englishman. Come on.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
A 7 for comedic value because it's funny. Because people don't choose where they're born.
Everything you like about it, I agree. I maybe just don't value those things in this. Well, I don't value the satire in HMS Pinafore at all.
Oh, I love it. But that's because you're American and Americans don't get patriotism irony.
No, we do. We definitely do. But there's the thing about HMS Pinafore that is, I mean, the big satire aspect of the very beginning being sailors wouldn't be clean. They'd be on the HMS Buzzsaw. You know, they wouldn't be on the Pinafore. The joke is that they're dainty. And then I think nowadays it doesn't like sailors are meant to be. Considered
that particularly important.
No, but that's the setting, right? That's the color that sets it up and establishes that they're. I think we're maybe meant to believe that there are probably sailors in the British Navy who are not that patriotic, who are just grizzled sailors, right?
What?
In the 1870s, I'm sure. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a guy who's scratching his scruffy beard. I don't know anything. I don't.
Yeah, I just to me, I just see this as people living in this topsy-turvy universe.
Okay.
And they are living in a universe where it is genuinely true that you are somehow able to select what class you're born into and select the country you're born into, because people are talking as if these are choices with utter conviction. And I find that very funny.
For in spite of all temptations to belong to other nations.
Do you see what I mean? Because it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean,
stupid.
But there is such a thing as somebody who, you know, re-ups their citizenship somewhere else and chooses to, you know, be a different citizen.
I think that's true today, but I think in the time of writing, I think it's very unlikely that any of these sailors would have had the opportunity to do that.
Well, let me give you my scores. It gets a 5 for music.
Oh, out of 20? Come on.
This?
So mean.
It's purposefully dull.
But what about he is an Englishman in it, that big thick chord.
That's the chorus before the song starts. I don't know if that counts.
I guess.
I mean, really, does this start from "He is an Englishman, behold him"? Like, does it start there?
And that's kind of its emotional start, I think.
I gotta say, I've been in Pinafore in one production in particular back in my early days, 12 years ago, where like I was in the chorus, and every single time we got to this emotional climax, I felt so deflated when the bosun, like, and his entrance is great, for he is an Englishman, but then when this pesante, I check out. Every performance I would check out, and
that's so sad.
When it got to this Sullivan, come on, man, he's saying, then he just repeats it, or perhaps Italian, as if that joke was worth saying twice.
Oh yeah, I get that that's not very funny, but the thing is, are you saying that you don't like every time that Sullivan like repeats a phrase? That happens constantly in GNS.
I gotta say, when it's this slow, like for example, we have an entire repeat of "For in Spite of All Temptations," the entire thing with the chorus. We also hear this. We hear this for Sir Joseph at the end of that number, and then we hear this. We hear this song 3 times in 10 minutes, and I never like it. Now I gave it a 1 for lyrics. I gave it a.
Do you not even think it deserves anything for how good the satire is?
No, I mean, I didn't give it a 0. Oh, goodness. Be careful. We're on Zoom, so when you make a reaction face like that, you may have to make some noise so that we hear you. Try it again. Very good.
There we go.
For he might have been a Russian, a French, or Turk, or Prussian, is Gilbert at his Babs ballady worst. I hate that line. It is so stupid. And I know it's supposed to be. But it's so, I can't even dignify it with my energy. I
can't believe I gave this a 9 for lyrics and you gave it a 1.
Well, you know, okay.
It's like, I feel like maybe, I mean, you are intelligent enough that it's not the fact that you're not getting the joke. This must just be one very specific way in which our sense of humor is just very different. Just this one instance, because usually our sense of humor is so similar when it comes to GNS. But in this instance, I think this is utter genius. It's so bizarre.
I think it doesn't. This is going to sound maybe itself a little dumb, but like it doesn't have a moment where the laugh happens. Because
no, it doesn't. But the whole thing is just it's not like the whole thing is like, you know, it's that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like it's clever. It's not so much funny as it is clever. And the utter conviction and the fact that it goes on quite long, I just think makes it funny. For he might have been a Russian, a French or Turk or Prussian, or perhaps Italian. But in spite of what, I just think it's great.
There have been a number of Star Trek type Pinafore productions in the past, and
that was my first ever principal role.
That's right. What was her name?
Little RoboCup.
Yep. There's one Starship Pinafore. Lyrics were by Stephen Quinton, Bill Brook in New York that I've seen, and my friend Trey was the bosun in one of the revivals of it. And I my favorite lyric in that was, now I appreciate the mixed intellectual properties on this, but I think it's fine. But in spite of all desire to strike back with the empire, I thought was so good. And I thought that alone, I smile more thinking about that than anything in this actual song. Hey. So I think the bosun is one of the weakest characters. Like I
think it's one of the best chorus principals. Top 10 for sure. I think we'll see when I rank those. But
in terms of, we both like to tick off roles. Bosun is one that I've never done. And I have so little interest in playing this character. And I'd almost rather them give this song to someone else. Mm-hmm. Let's see what other scores I give it. I give it a 5 for narrative importance. See, that's pretty good. And a 6 for dramatic impact. I do understand that you go, I mean, it's the end. It becomes the final notes of the show you hear. And the comedic value is a 3. So this tied a King of Autocratic Power on my list, and I decided I like a King of Autocratic Power more. So I made that my distinction.
Whew.
In the end, that's a 20 for me and a 44 for you, with a total score of 64. For He is an Englishman, and if you feel content with that, I think we can look at the next song, which for me...
Oh, yeah, let's move on.
Pretty much the same. I have the same issue. It is number 21 on the list, When Britain Really Ruled the Waves, from IOLANTHE.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, what was really interesting about this one is that, so because I gave this list to you so long ago, I wanted to remind myself today of what they all were. So I made a playlist on Spotify of all of the songs, but apparently Jealous Torments isn't on Spotify, so I couldn't listen to that one. But when this one came on, it was the only one I was like, oh, I don't really want to listen to that.
Every performance.
And I was like, oh, that's an odd reaction.
No, every performance.
Because even though I do appreciate that it is clever, it is lyrically clever, and I think that maybe people listening for it the first time would find it funny, and it is quite dramatic. It was the one that I was like, oh, I managed one verse, and I was like, oh, that's enough. I was actually a bit bored. I was bored. And I think, to me, the performer really has to make this for me to actually sit up and listen to it, in all honesty. Like, I want to like it more because I appreciate it's clever, but in my heart of hearts, I maybe do find it slightly duller than other ones. When
this song happens, when I'm seeing IOLANTHE live, I want to fast forward 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Every time.
No, I'm with you there. I am.
This is a classic example of my issue of Sullivan not switching up his third verse. It is because you rearranged the orchestra part when we did it, didn't you? And that was great. Well, right.
That really made a big difference.
It made a big difference because it made the performer do something else too.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that idea came about when we first did IOLANTHE, not the very first time in Eddington Park, but when we did it in 2016 in December at Barron's Court Theatre with George Ireland at the piano. And we sort of put in the second verse, almost a Handelian nautical bass line.
When Wellington thrashed Bonaparte, as any child can tell, the House of Peers throughout the war did nothing in particular, and did it very well. Yet Britain set the world ablaze in good King George's glorious days.
And in the final verse, we sort of called it like Last Night of the Proms.
And while the House of Peers withholds its legislative hand, the noble statesmen do not itch to interfere with matters which they do not understand. As bright will shine Great Britain's rays, as in King George's glorious days.
Just doing this made that song so different for the actors on stage. Whereas Sullivan has no variation in the orchestration at all. And I think that's perfectly serviceable. Yeah. It's one of his accompaniments that, fitting in the style, the old style that he's working with, the rhythms of pretty much all of the voices are identical. So it's like the melody of the violin is the vocal melody, no difference, and all of the instruments are moving. So it's all pretty four square. So having in like a little, like, you know, that little running line we did, changed it in a way that worked. And I'll say that the National Festival Orchestra, when we did it then in Harrogate in 2018, I orchestrated this idea for them, and they ran with it. And the trumpeter,
it was so good.
Trumpeter nailed it. It was so cool. So
you can check that out on GS Opera TV. Forbear Theatres IOLANTHE.
Our rendering of that song in that way, if I could make that the version, and I have very few things like this that I would go, I would just always change that. This is one where now that I've seen it that way, and in the way we presented it, I think that this orchestration wouldn't stand out as being inauthentic. Like it would feel like, oh, Sullivan did a gestural idea.
Yeah, it didn't seem out of place. I almost forgot it happened until I watched it recently. I almost forgot that he rewrote it. It fit really well, I thought.
So let's say that would get a higher mark. If it would. If it had,
you know what? I wonder actually if when I was scoring it, I was actually kind of thinking of your orchestration in my head a bit. Because, I actually, when I was listening to them to do my scores, that was the version I listened to. So that might have been why I gave it a higher mark than I should have done. Because I agree, actually, it really shouldn't be as high as I put it. I gave it a 13 for music. So I appreciated that it was less than Sullivan's average. I gave it an 8 for lyrics because I do think the lyrics are clever in a similar way to how I really enjoy He is an Englishman. I think the lyrics are good for this one. I gave it a 6 for narrative importance. I could have given it less for that. I gave it a 7 for dramatic impact and a 7 for comedic value. I think that it can be dramatic, but again, I think I was thinking of your version when I scored it 7 dramatically.
Gosh, yeah.
And then I gave it a 7 purely for that line. Did nothing in particular, but did it very well. I think that is very good. Very good. That alone gets it. If something has one good joke, it gets a 7, basically.
My issue with this song is it has one good joke. And you in your videos so far, you've said something that I always agree with every time you've brought it up, which is there are some times where it's sometimes Gilbert's fault and sometimes Sullivan compounds it, where the one joke takes so long to say. And like it doesn't, like he is an Englishman in a way, but in this case, basically like the peers were dumb. All right, we get it. You've been giving us that in the whole dialogue too, and they don't know, and they're proud of the fact that they're idle. I gave it an 11 for music, and that's before the alterations. So I do think that it's an astounding piece of part writing in the style that it is. It's Sullivan's like attempts at pastiche are always successful. Whenever he's like, oh, I'm going to write this in the style of a song that's 100+ years earlier, that's going to feel like that it does fit like next to Rule Britannia at the drums. But again, here's from an orchestration perspective, it's only strings in the verse.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
Only strings, and then he only brings the tutti out at the end, which always, when that chorus comes in each verse, you're like, the timpani and the whole thing. So again, a little bit of variety there is nice, and he's usually doing that in his orchestration. So this does seem lazy to me in a way. Two for lyrics. How come you got King George twice? We got 3 verses. Give me.
That's true, actually. Yeah, that is a bit weird. No, I agree. I probably shouldn't have given it so high for that reason. But I still do think the lyrics are clever. It's not. There's the one really funny joke, but I think the whole thing is good and relevant.
When I like Sullivan patter songs Gilbert patter songs because he can do a million jokes in a minute. When he does joke songs that are slow and lyric for the baritone, you basically get 2 lines of verse, then a huge refrain line that has no joke in it, and then the chorus repeats the huge refrain line. So you basically only have 6 lines in this song, and it takes 3 minutes.
Yeah. That's true, actually. Yeah. Because while I will fight you on the Pinafore one, I do genuinely think that I marked this one too high.
Well, I'll say the narrative importance is a 2.
I can see how in your system you would have given it a 2. I think I'm just very generous in general, but yeah, I can see how that would be a 2.
You could not cut it because then Ligula would not have a reason to say charming persons are they not.
But I find that even though I love that section with the piers and the fairies, I do find that is narratively a very weak spot in IOLANTHE.
Absolutely is. It's definitely time killing.
And that is the only reason why In Vain to Us You Plead didn't do like top 10 in duets, because I find it a bit like, oh, what's going on? Like that, I find that song fun, but it's just narratively, that whole section I just find a bit confusing.
it's got to be energetic and full of life, and it's hard to pull that off when you're kind of left in the show. Act 2 starts, and it takes you 20 minutes before you see anybody you know.
Yeah.
Because you don't really know these. Yeah. The two peers and the chorus fairies aren't the principals. Yeah,
they're not terribly prominent. Yeah.
I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact and a 4 for comedic value. Because I can see that. Yeah. Big loud thing at the end. In the end, it's a 25 from me and a 41 from you. Total score of 66. Let's move on to something we neither of us want to talk about very much, which is number 20, First You're Born from Utopia Limited.
Yeah. I will say, I'll say that there are some good things about this song. I don't like the King's character in this song, as we were saying. I gave it a 5 for narrative importance, because I tend to give things a 5 when I feel like it doesn't particularly obstruct the narrative, but it doesn't progress it. But I actually think maybe it does obstruct it in terms of the King's character, what we were talking about. I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact. I think maybe I was a bit too generous there. I gave it a 6 for comedic value, because I do think that jokes are being made that maybe some people might find funny. I don't particularly find them very funny, but, I can see it's kind of like a vaguely comic song. I gave it a 7 for lyrics, because I do think they are skillfully put together. Like, their structure's quite nice. I just don't particularly follow the thread of why this song is in a place it's in. But I do think there are some nice musical moments in it, like when the woodwinds do those kind of do. Do you know the bits I mean?
Yes.
Doctor mumbles like a dumb thing. Nurse is busy mixing something.
Creeping orchestration during it, right?
I love that. I think I really and I love the intro. Bomb.
It's orchestration. This is one of those ones where people often say Sullivan wasn't very inspired because Gilbert, gave him a bad hand for whatever the song was. But I think Sullivan nails this one. Sullivan did a great job. Like, Utopia Limited is just Gilbert dropping the ball and Sullivan at his prime. I think that,
and it's such a shame, because it's like Sullivan's best goes with Gilbert's worst. It sucks.
It's tough. It's tough news, but this is one.
And it makes Sullivan's music look worse than it is, because honestly, this is all so good. All the music in Utopia Limited is so good.
I agree. I have to say something.
But they've all come low on this list because of everything else.
I campaigned for this one in the Savoynet production, where that was a production where at the end of the day we made 3 cuts: King of Autocratic Power verse 2, half of Lady Sophie's Act 2 song, and the extended Knightsbridge Nursemaids number 8 version.
You see, I have an absolute fascination with hearing the second part of that Knightsbridge Nursemaids thing, because I've only heard it done in like MIDI files. Do you know the bit I'm talking about, where they kind of reprise it in like a different key, and it's like, ooh, are we going to do that when we do it?
Of course, but that was one of the I campaigned when I MD'd it in 2016. I campaigned to not cut any music, and I had to have a few trade-offs. And for First You're Born was on the chopping block from the director, and I campaigned to keep it. And
I think that was the right decision. I think it's well known enough that it would be a weird thing to cut.
I was reading the Savoynet discussion, which are all on the GS archive, which are really interesting, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, that's like a cut I'm so used to seeing." But that was 1999 or so, so it
that's
might
so
be
weird. Yeah.
But I gave this a 9 for music, which is one of my lower scores. Which, now that we're talking about it, I think that I'm really just giving it the low score because it's the same thing 3 times. It's a 7 for lyrics.
Okay.
I actually think this is one of those ones where Gilbert's lyric is very sophisticated.
Yeah, I like the lyric. I like the lyric for what it is. I just don't feel it matches the King's character at all. It just seems like a song out of context that could have been written, that could have been sung by any normal person.
It could have been
like any kind of conventional British gentleman.
It's Gilbert speaking to you, right?
Yes, it's Gilbert. It's not. Yeah.
But the first verse about the birth of this baby is so the imagery in it is so unusual for a GNS show that I find that like we often forget that a song doesn't have to be just a bunch of nouns. It can make you see a whole image in your head. And the image of the baby I love a lot. Obviously it goes a little bit off when it's really more about like, yeah, you're going to get married and your wife's going to be less appealing to you. And
Mary Queen has got a tongue.
So what you do there is you don't put in a pause. You don't put in a pause to make an audience go, you're right, wives are,
these wives of ours that we chose to marry.
What a bunch of nerds these old men are. So then I gave it a 3 for narrative importance, a 2 for dramatic impact, and a 7 for comedic value. Because at least it has puzzled baby wonders why. Why does the baby?
Yeah, because I think it's got some funny moments. I think, as you were saying, it leaves me a bit like, oh, this is a bit bizarre. But I do appreciate that it is witty. I think it has got some witty moments.
Oh my gosh, and it's got a nasty thing for the cast, but every refrain is different. Usually,
like musically?
No, text-wise. For example, times teetotum if you spin it versus joke beginning never ceases versus daily driven wife is drover. So it's very easy for Gilbert to just go like, and everyone will say as you walk your flowery way and make little adjustments to each refrain that just contextualize what you heard in the verse. But in this case, the verse is new each time. And oh my gosh, times teetotum, if you spin it, gives its quotum once a minute. I'll go bail, you hit the nail. And if you fail, the deuce is in it. Here's an example of him going, I'm going to use short monosyllabic words. This isn't going to be the King of Autocratic Power verse 2. This is so comparatively like the type of word choice Paramount is using here is so approachable. And even when he's using odd words, you get a feeling of it because it's not, the syntax isn't completely nonsensical. So it gets a little bit of a higher mark there for me, I think, in terms of Gilbert's contribution than in Sullivan's in a way. So there's I gotta do like what he's up to, and it's so dark that I think that if you want to play the darkness of it, when I played Scaffia with Blue Hill Troop in 2012, I really enjoyed being in this number because I thought like me and Fantas got to look at him and think like, what are you up to? Like what exactly? Like we were so suspicious of. It's
like he's kind of losing it a bit. That's cool.
So there was, and that was all thanks to Gary Slavin, who directed that, to go like, we're going to keep this number, but we got to make it about something. So
interesting.
Shall we move ahead?
Yeah, no, always. Yeah, I'm happy to.
Number 19.
Get going.
I'm shocked. 19 is Fair Moon to Thee I Sing from HMS Pinafore. Here's one where you had quite a low score versus me. So
I did, and I think I did mark it too low musically in hindsight, but I think it still would have been very low for me. Because I gave it a 13. I actually think I should have given it more like a 15, to be honest. But okay, I gave it a 6 for lyrics. I have lived hitherto free from the breath of slander, beloved by all my crew, a really popular commander. I just find it's not bad, but it's just erring on the side of just a bit clunky. Do you know what I mean?
Can you believe that Gilbert uses the word really?
Yeah, that's what I find a really popular. I find it a bit like you're trying to meet a word quote, or you just needed to find a word that had the correct number of syllables without really thinking of the language that like a captain would use. Exactly. I gave it a 6 for narrative importance because I'll tell you what I like. No, wait. I gave it a 7 for narrative importance. I do love that it sets up the second act. I think that is good. However, I do find that the information contained within it is not really terribly consistent with the rest of the show. Now my kindly crew rebel, and I think rebel is a very strong word to use for what has happened to him. Now my kindly crew rebel. My daughter to Attar is partial. Sir Joseph storms and threatens a court-martial. What? When did that happen? And then they meet each other a bit later, and Sir Joseph is just fine with him.
I think
I find it confusing, and I don't really get what's going on.
This is everybody and their mother knows that Pinafore is my least favorite Gilbert and Sullivan show.
Yeah,
and this is one of the emblematic reasons why.
Because it's not my least favorite at all. The opera.
Well, things like this though, like again, or like Dick Deadeye's complete disappearance of a plot line.
Yeah, that's annoying. That
Whereas
really
like
gets to
a
me.
show like Utopia that has no plot, I don't mind if plots disappear.
Exactly.
Pinafore is like 90 minutes. People are like, oh, it's a perfect 90 minutes. I'm like, no, because yeah, is the rebellion of the crew the serving grog, if you please, sir, scene, or is the rebellion something we didn't see after?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's
then,
just I don't feel. I feel like this is Gilbert artificially giving weight to the captain's state of mind
100%.
when you don't really get to see that. But, you know, maybe if there was a way the actor could do it that made it make sense, I wouldn't mind. Let me just tell you the other scores. I give it a 7 for dramatic impact, which I think it's nice because it is a lovely vocal line, and I do think that alone makes it quite dramatic. Comedically, I gave it a 3 because I just think it is not at all funny. There's not any jokes in it.
I don't think so.
There's no jokes in it. I don't think it's witty. I think lyrically it's a bit poor. It's all right, but it's just, yeah. It just, whereas other ones in my list got rescued by having a really high mark in one category, this just kind of was like bleh.
Right, no, this is your number.
board.
This is your number 23.
23.
And
I had the second to last,
for
actually.
me, this is my number 17. So it's a little more ahead for me. My scores are an 18 for music. I think that this is one of Sullivan's indelible, the pizzicato. First of all, then this introduction, and I'm playing in D here. We all know that this song is written in D, but is usually performed in C because it's brutally high. Barrington was quite a high voice, so whether it's better in C or D, I've heard it so many times in both that I don't mind too much. I even have a hot take. Like there's an option at the ending in D. I'll play it in D because that's what I have it in the score right now. He sings that whole arpeggio, but I almost kind of prefer, which is what Jeffrey Skitch does on the D'Oyly Carte recording, because he sings it in D, but with the F sharp instead of this high A, which I think...
That's usually the version I hear. I don't usually hear somebody going all the way up.
Particularly not in the key of D, unless they are actually a tenor, in which case you've made a grand mistake, my friend.
I do think I marked it musically way too low. I admit that. Can I tell you what bit of it I love musically?
Yes.
When the second time he says sixes are at sevens, it does a really lovely key change.
It does.
Either it's sixes or it's sevens. That one. I think that is just charming. I love that.
Well, we've got...
No, I did mark this one too low musically. So you can give it an extra 3 marks from me, but I don't know if that'll change its position.
It would not.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to give it more than a 16, honestly, but I did mark it too low.
No, you're talking about everything, either at 6, then this deceptive cadence.
Yes. I love that. That's nice. Yeah.
That's the kind of thing Mozart pulls in the quintet in the first act of Magic Flute.
I can't picture that song completely, but I know that it's very Mozarty, and I can.
Oh, absolutely. Especially he has this little suspended thing. So it's not just resolving straight from here to here. It's resolving. And
it's like something you said to me in the summer about something I did in one of my arias, which is I made it seem like a question. And I think that's what the music does here. Ooh, it makes you think,
Indeed.
I think it really helps the actor, actually. It's nice.
Yeah, he's also then the second time he extends it. So the first one went... everything either at 6s. The second time after that, he's going to go. Extend, drawing out that question for as long as he can. Also, just for the sake of, this is a dramatic impact thing, which I gave it a high mark for, an 8. Same scene.
Okay.
Same scene, night, moonlight, captain discovered singing and accompanying himself on a guitar, little buttercup seated on quarterdeck, gazing sentimentally at him. And when you
I gave it a 7 for dramatic impact. I think it's nice.
If you have a completely traditional, expensive, beautiful set, that this moon, like you actually see the moon in it or something beautiful like that, like this can stun. And obviously, I think this is one of those ones that if your baritone is incredible. This is one of the moments of the show you watch Act 1 and you go, I cannot wait to hear this guy sing.
Yeah, that's true, actually. You think I'm in really safe hands with this one.
I gave it a 6 for lyrics and a 4 for narrative importance.
Yeah.
A lot of that's the muddying of the plot. But the thing is, the things that aren't muddy, the more generic things, like, why is everything either at 6s or at 7s? I mean, this guy, you have to imagine that, obviously, in terms of what we've seen in the show, it's an unearned dramatic weight. However, maybe he's had a really rough life. Like, you have to imagine you're seeing an inner life that we don't know about this guy. And if you if you make him in love with Buttercup from the beginning, and like not able to express it, like all I could say is a plump and pleasing person. But if that's not a joke, that's like, oh, what a plump and pleasing person she is. Then, oh my gosh, I mean, how wonderful is how sweetly he carols forth his melody.
Oh, yes, I love that.
So you almost have like a line which makes this, like, it's one of those lines that follows a song that tells you that the song was good. And you don't usually have that. I'm into it. Yeah, three for comedy. And why I gave it a 3 for comedy is for no reason. So let's move on.
Great.
18 on our list from the Grand Duke is When You Find You're a Broken Down Critter.
What?
Wait, where
I put this way higher.
You have it at...
I had it like halfway down.
13. You have it at 13, and I have it at 18.
I will say that I think it's at its best when you just have one really strong verse combining all the best lyrics.
Yeah, I mean...
So I agree that it is really long, but that's the only downside to it. I think it is do you not think that orchestrally it's incredible? Well, do you not think that it's got so much good stuff in it?
That would be my issue with cutting it in half, because Sullivan, thank gosh, hello, he's got...
Daenerys, look!
Daenerys, I love you. It's got 2 completely different accompaniments for each verse. So you've got the first verse... When you find you're a broken down critter. And you've got this light woodwind accompaniment. And in the second verse, you've got what I call the Tintax brass, which is like, where it's down an octave and it's just these plunky brass. Then in the vapors, you have this, and these wonderful duplet trills, which are like, which happen on Crawley Things Never at Rest.
Like, what did you give it for music?
Music, I give it a 15. I think that Sullivan is really on with this one, and finds like, oh my gosh, the little woodwind thing after jams is wonderful. I think this... I
gave it a 17 for music.
Oh,
I'll tell you what I gave it. I gave it 17 for music. I gave it 7 for lyrics, because even though I think the poetry of it is really good, I think it's not aged very well. I gave it a 6 for narrative importance, because I don't think it obstructs the narrative. And actually, I do think it tells you a lot about his character. And I think it's very powerful to introduce this guy as somebody important, who's a high status individual. But then you really get to see his vulnerabilities. And I think that's not often done, not in this way. And I just find that really powerful and different. 6 for dramatic impact. I think it's the most dramatic, but I think if you can really create that tension with the actor, and the orchestra just does that really well, then I think it could be dramatic. Then I gave it a 7 for comedic value, because I think it's funny.
Yeah.
It's a funny song. So I didn't mark it like crazy high.
We're pretty close here.
Okay. Yeah.
I think this is a song that I think is essential. I love any moment that you get only one person on stage, and we have so few of them sometimes, particularly with a character like this. 15 for music, 5 for lyrics. And I think my demerits there are a bit of the archaic words. We had a wonderful interpretation by our Rudolph, who, when we did it with our Grand Duke in 2018 with Forbear.
And you're plagued with unruly insiders, and your spine is all creepy with spiders, and your underpants brimming with krill. Creepy.
Yes, which is already going to be stolen in a production of Grand Duke that I'm doing in June.
Wonderful. Versus "And You're Highly Gamboge in the Gill." Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but but also some of these lyrics really do. Oh my gosh, I feel them when you do feel it, and I think for people like us who are kind of creative and what's the word? It's like we're like suffering creative people. We have pain, and I find that very poignant. It's relatable, isn't it?
It's relatable. It's relatable to me.
Yes.
And that's what depression feels like. And I think it's interesting to have a Victorian song that so captures that combination of anxiety and depression.
Do you know who understood that completely? Was Mike Lee and Gary Yershon when they put an instrumental version of this during the toothache scene in Topsy Turvy.
They did. Oh, that was amazing.
He tells the bleeding harpies to get out. He's working. And it's just like Gilbert, like this is another classic case of Gilbert was a suffering person in a lot of ways and understood it. And I think it'd be a shame to cut this. I have narrative importance of 5 because even though he says this in the dialogue, I feel like there's something really special about the way this song gives him a moment to be real. And if you almost have to not treat this as a comic song in order to make it work for me. So there are certain things I think I've seen where this song is like played comedically. And it's pork pie a little bit. And there are funny moments in it. There are moments where the darkness of it can actually bring out comedy, like very dark comedy, but still. I will say, like, I'm a big John Reed fan. Love John Reed. I think that this is a case where he never got to settle into the part because they were doing it quickly and doing it for just the centenary 1976 season festivities. And
so is it John Reed on the recording?
As Rudolph, yeah.
Ooh,
and on the when he screams after the door slams, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I know. I don't believe it.
So there's stuff in it where you're like, there are ways to play this more subversively. I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact and a 7 for comedic value. We were pretty close on our scores here, a 38 and a 43 for a total of 80.
Okay. For some reason, it came way higher in my list, but perhaps that's because you've marked other things low.
I've marked other things low, but I also have. I mean, looking at some of my scores, I actually mark higher scores than you do in some things. I'm very generous as we get going.
Let us see.
17. My gallant crew, good morning. I am the captain of the Pinafore.
No! Why do you hate Pinafore so much?
Because it's a
my gallant crew, good morning, sir. Good morning. I hope you are quite well. Quite well. And you, sir? Yeah, are you telling me that is not comedy gold?
You know what? It is. I gave it a 4. And you know why I gave it a 4?
Oh, that is a travesty.
I'm gonna stick by it. But the reason I gave it a 4 is because I think that the humor in the song proper is, again, like each verse has a joke. One verse is he gets sick and one verse he doesn't swear.
What never, hardly ever, the most well-known and classic Gilbert and Sullivan joke. You gave that a 4 for comedy.
Yeah.
You have issues with HMS Pinafore.
Well, yeah. I mean, you should see the versions of it I've been in. I got to tell you, one thing about this show is, or about this whole idea of the ranking, is I've tried to treat every song as if it's my ideal version of it. It's performed in a way that, like, okay, let's assume it's not the weak versions I've seen or been in. But my problem with HMS Pinafore is mostly the sailors. I would cut the sailors out of the show. No.
What?
No, you're right about all the stuff with Rafe in the beginning, but let me put it this way. This song is one of those ones where I have a hard time ranking it highly on this list because how much of it the chorus sings relative to the soloist. Do you know what a good example of that is? Oh wait, shouldn't this be on the list? Now hearken to my strict command.
I deliberately didn't put that on because of that reason. Okay. Because I felt that the chorus had the interesting meat of it. And to an extent, I can put the chorus contribution into Arias when they just have a bit, but I felt that was just pushing it too far.
100%.
No, that was deliberate. Yeah,
I 100% then. I agree with you. So but understand, though, that your logic there, like, hearken to my strict command, again, it's like the lead singer of that song sings like 4 lines.
Yeah, no, I do get, if that is part of it, I do get that.
I have to give this a 13 for music because I do love, Sullivan is going to sing the same lines in different ways. You're very, very good, and be it understood, I command a right good crew. Then new melody. You're very, very good, and be it understood, he commands a right good crew, which I think is very nice. And there's the juicy...
So great. Though related to a peer, I can... What is it?
Hand, reef, and steer.
Hand, reef, and steer. Yeah. I think that is good. Let me just go through quickly. So I gave it 14 for music. I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I gave it an 8 for narrative importance. So important, you get to meet the captain. And you meet him, he introduces himself very well. You know exactly who he is from this song. And the character of the captain is very narratively important. I gave it an 8 for dramatic impact because it's just... It's really in your face. And I gave it... What did I give it for comedic value? A 9. I gave it a 9 for comedic value.
It's got jokes in it, sure.
I think it is hilarious. I think this song, when it's done really well, I am laughing nonstop all the way through it.
Do you know what? You're right. I think that, especially if you nail the choruses in it, you're good. Like the chorus. Yeah,
if it's done pristinely, like really cleanly, it's great.
And the chorus contribution, it's wonderful 4-part harmony, which so infrequently do I feel like we all have been in a GNS chorus, those of us who sing tenor or bass, where all the basses want to sing bass 2 and all the tenors want to sing tenor 1. So you end up with, just instead of, which is just a little better, isn't it? Because it's what he wrote. And if you've got tenors that can belt that high A at the end, and they can hold it for 17 beats, I'm very pleased. So I gave it a 13 for music, a 5 for lyrics, a 6 for narrative importance, but an 8 for dramatic impact, because I think the way this is one of those ones that the audience will leave remembering this song. And a 4 for comedic value. It is the only reprise that I like at the end of the show.
Yeah.
I go, and oh my gosh, the way those lyrics change. And though before my fall I was captain of you all. That's so sad, but he's so accepting of it because he's singing it. And
I love it because he can be a buttercup now.
But he can remain himself because the thing is, the captain, as a human being, is still this guy. And even though he's changed status,
he's the same person. Yeah,
same guy. I definitely don't know about productions of Pinafore that do the bit where they change accents at the end. And I actually feel like it's more funny if Rafe is very erudite because he's the one who talks about the living ganglion and he's just already posh. What if the captain, because the captain's already like, if what? Like he's already a bit of a loose cannon. He doesn't seem as well bred as you'd expect. He says dammy after all. Rafe would never say dammy. So obviously the captain.
Of course.
But I'm sorry to rank this one low. I think that you're right. This is a hit. And its cultural impact, its cultural impact is important. So
I think it is.
Shall we? Let's move to.
Oh, wait a moment. Before we move, my dinner is ready. Where are we up to?
We're up to number 16.
Ah.
Do you know what this is?
No.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
From the Pirates. From the Pirates of Penzance, it is tormented with the anguish dread, sighing softly to the river.
I was wondering when this one was going to come up because this one came relatively low on my list. Again, I think all these songs are good. Nothing's terrible. I gave this one a 16 for music. It's mostly for the opening and for the chorus responses more than the actual solo itself. So it's a bit of a cheat. Lyrics, I gave a 6 to. Yeah, they were right. Narrative importance. Oh, wow. I gave this a 6. I don't know why I gave it a 6. I should have given it less than that. Narrative importance. I mean, I guess it's just like a vehicle for silly things to happen, but it's not in itself narratively important. Then I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact and a 7 for comedic value.
Do you know what else?
I'm mystified as to why I gave it a 7 for comedic value. I don't, because in itself it's not particularly funny. I think I'm just thinking of usually it gives you the chance to do good staging, but actually that I shouldn't really take that into account. But maybe I should. I don't know.
Do you know what else is a vehicle for silly things to happen?
What?
HMS Pinafore.
That's true.
Okay, so this is the one that had a vastly different performer score for me than a score.
Interesting. Oh, I just realized that my headphones aren't on. Hold on. Sorry.
Okay, it is okay. It is okay. Everything will be fine.
I don't even know where they are.
How about you find
I'll try.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to literally stand up and shake this all out.
Well, I'll play this chord a few times.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I knew something. Couldn't figure it out. There we go. I'm all plugged in.
Wonderful. So I gave this a 15 for music. I had a fight with myself on this one a little bit, but because it's got this like Schubert art song thing, which actually makes this song challenging on the piano, but actually very pianistic in a way that I find that this figure, the violins, first and second violins have to play this together. And it's definitely a struggle. It's the kind of thing where, like, if you only have 2 violins, you might as well just have one of them play it, because it's really hard to play it like in tune consistently. Yeah. But maybe I was like, but is it unoriginal? Like, are the times where Sullivan is doing almost a parody of another composer, do those count as good music in the same way that a completely original Sullivanian thing does?
Yeah, because he's still choosing to use that. And essentially, a lot of good art is copying.
Yeah. Well,
but putting your own spin on it and being intelligent about it. So that's all right.
Pirates has been an interesting show to observe because it has so much opera and art song parody in it.
Yeah, like Mabel's Verdi references.
Exactly right. And just so much of it is following like bel canto structure in terms of a lot of the recitatives and things. And it's doing that in a way that the other operas don't do as often. And in a way that the Broadwayification of Pirates has sort of eliminated understanding of. And I wonder if sometimes, gosh, I'm going to sound like a purist, but is Pirates sometimes too silly? I mean, it's so silly, but are there times where like it could be more beautiful? And there's certainly the most beautiful duet ever in it, right? So that helps. But I gave it a 4 for lyrics.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think if anything, I was generous. Yeah.
Part of that has to come from the fact that anyone who's sung in this number knows that it's very hard to remember the words. And
yes, it is.
I would, when I,
I've been in this. Yeah.
When I've MD'd it, I've had to say things like, okay, first verse, 1 tree, second verse, 2 trees.
Oh, yeah.
Heaven and sad, heaven, speed, and sad the lot are in alphabetical order. So if you remember heaven, the first, like, and every single time you finish a clause, you can so easily switch to the other verse. And so much of that comes from the fact that, you know, the choreography doesn't often relate to the text in this one. Not that it needs to, but like it's almost more like the whole song is one idea that billows and flows. I know
what you mean about the lyrics being super hard to remember. It's the only other one I found as hard is maybe If Somebody There Chanced to Be from RUDDIGORE.
Yeah, that's tough.
I really struggle remembering those lyrics.
The benefit here is that you're one person. The problem with this song is, I mean, and I've struggled with this song so many times because, again, it's got 4-part harmony for the tenors and basses, and it can be very hard to feel like you need every single member of the chorus to 100% know. Yeah. Yeah. It can be very challenging. Another spot that's always hard for everybody is wooing happy bee. I often get woo, wing, happy bee, bye, fickle breeze. It's just a challenging number for me. So I have a lot of PTSD from MDing this song so many times.
Yeah.
Narrative importance of 4. Doily Cart would routinely cut half of it. Or it's been cut entirely plenty of times. Dramatic impact, I give it a 9. Because
okay.
I do find that it's cutting it is a shame because it's such an unusual number, and we've barely seen the major. I mean, the major general. I played the part.
Well, I definitely wouldn't argue for cutting it. I think that, in fact, even on the recording I listened to earlier today, they just had one verse.
That would be the 1968 one, the Doily.
It must be, yeah.
And so that was the traditional cut at the time that they would take. And
I can definitely see why that's done. I don't know if I do it. I probably still not, because I just think it's lovely musically.
Oh, it's a stunner, and
I think it's worth hearing it twice. But yeah,
I'm going to give a comedic value of a 10.
Really?
Because I think that this is a case where none of that is in the lib. The comedic value. That's
the thing. I think similarly with me, I gave it a 7, but I think that was mostly, or did I give it a 7? What did I say I gave it? I gave it a 7, yeah. But that, again, is mostly because it has potential for a lot of fun stuff going on.
Let me go out on a limb and offend everybody. Perhaps the cart would cut it because they didn't want the show to be too silly, and they never knew how to stage this in a way that like they couldn't comprehend like, how do we do this number and like maintain our like composed sense of humor about it. I have never, like, as a director, I have never managed to accurately put what is on my head on the stage. I have tried 3 times to direct this. I've directed this number 3 times, and I have such trouble with it. I've enjoyed it. You choreographed me in it in 2015.
Yeah,
and
then I did Pirates of Penzance with Forbear in the summer, 2020. And then I did it again a year later
at the festival.
Yeah,
and I've directed.
And I've never managed to do this to a standard that I'm satisfied with.
I directed it once with Utopia, and similarly, like, it definitely proved to be a bit tricky, and it requires complete commitment from everybody. Yeah. And that's very hard to get sometimes, especially if you're dealing with large choruses, limited rehearsal time, any of these things together. But this is a song that I give a 10 for performer enjoyment.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part, I think, of playing the Major General, is the song. And I think it's because it's just so unusual. And Sullivan even marks. Well, I guess like his intention here is totally different to everyone else on stage, and so the song isn't actually the funniest thing about the song. It's what's happening that's not the song that is funny, and it's like deliberately bland to kind of make that happen in a way. I've enjoyed so much, like, coming up with things to do. Well, you gave me great actions in 2015. I did wonderful dancing with people, and I staged myself to like lay upside down and have people almost decapitate me and move out of the way at the last minute. Classic comedy stuff. Classic. It's so fun, and vocally it's very gratifying because Sullivan scores Major General with the first tenors, which means that if I kind of understand Grossmith correctly, his very specific voice was not meant to blend with the first tenors. And the effect of this should be, and I never really get this, I think it was a lot of times I think the major does try to blend, and I don't think they need to. And of course, singing it as a baritone, I can only sing that first tenor part like a little bit more full out. So in a way, like, you kind of get this feeling that like it's somebody just singing in the shower with this chorus echoing them. And and I find that really amusing. Sullivan's very interesting at times when he's marking so-and-so with this part of the chorus, and the times when he does that when it's not their normal voice type. Because otherwise he'll put the Major General with the basses. Occasionally he'll throw the patter person with the tenor or something, but here he's got a specific idea in mind. And obviously this is another one of the songs that you've put on this list as opposed to the patter list because of the lyricism. And
I couldn't put this as a patter song in the same way that I couldn't have Giuseppe's Act 2 song be in this list.
Completely agree.
It's a patter song, you know? So, I think that's the only 2 times where there's a switch. I don't know there's any other patter person who has a song in this list.
The Rudolph song
Ludwig and Rudolph, of course. Yeah, sorry, they're Irish.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But so my only issues with this one is, as an MD, I suffer. I mean, through the trees, off on 2. I never get that. Some pesky directors always having them move when I need them to be looking at me in the pit.
These directors.
Then I also love some things, though, like Sullivan's got the tenors and basses harmonizing in a way where they're actually singing the same part. So tenor ones and bass ones, tenor 2s and bass 2s. So they're actually singing the same parts, which is a very like musical theater arrangement to have. But there's beautiful harmony here, and when it's sung exactly right, it's perfect. But when it's not, it's...
Yeah, I love the harmonies in this one. Like when I was Ruth back at university, I remember this being the first GNS song that I was singing and that I truly loved. I was like, wow, this is awesome harmonies, because I did Pinafore and then this. So this was like, oh,
it's a beautiful piece.
It's nice. I'm
into it. Let's move ahead.
Let's move on.
15. A cut song from Yeomen of the Guard. It is When Jealous Torments Rack My Soul.
Yeah. Okay. So this is, I think I had it number 12. So this is similar. I gave it a 15 for music. I think that it's weird in places and there's some odd transitions, but there is also some really good stuff as well that I want to acknowledge. I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I think it's about Gilbert's average, really. 7 for narrative importance, because when it is included, it does give you insight into Wilfred's character. I think it is... The only reason it's cut, I think, is for time and it not being necessary, but it certainly doesn't obstruct the narrative when it's included. It's just that there's just too much good stuff in Yeomen to have everything. Dramatic impact, I gave it a 7. I think... And that a lot of that comes from its unusualness. The fact that the melody is like a scale, I didn't think I liked, but it tells you something about Wilfred. I'm not quite sure what, but it tells you something, you know? I gave it an 8 for comedic value, mostly for the cat joke. But
people love it.
I like the whole thing. I think it's a funny song and it's a good character piece, and it follows on nicely from Phoebe's character piece. And the only reason I have cut it when I've directed it is because the show's just long enough already and it's not needed, but I like it.
I love When Jealous Torments, and it was one of those things when I was first getting into GNS and I bought all of the new Doily Cart recordings and I finally heard this for the first time. It blew me away on how unusual it was.
It's so weird. But do you agree that sometimes things happen in the orchestra that are like, huh? And the Scalic vocal line is odd.
Yeah, I mean, he sings da 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 da.
That doesn't really seem in keeping with the emotion that he's feeling.
Well, the thing is,
It's odd.
I kind of kinked it up when I sang this recently in my solo show, and I definitely enjoyed like the fact that like the imagery in the lyrics, like it's much less painful on the whole to go and sit on red hot coal till you're completely flayed. Like he talks so much about the like his satisfaction. He does have a certain kinky energy talking about all.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So to start with like, and then end on. It's got, so yeah, I mean, I had my little hip.
And then I love the kind of weird, is it syncopation? And ask your kindly friend to crack your wretched bones upon the rack. It's like where the downbeat seems to change. Do you see it? Is that? Yeah, I'm not sure what the right word to use is.
There's sort of like all of the hits are on 2 and 4. They're like where the snare drum would be.
Yeah, and I think that does give it a really kind of like modern groove. Oh, that freaked Daenerys out.
Anything that's got snare drums in it, I like. So when you have like boo pop, anything that's got that oompa feel is gonna give me a lot of satisfaction. So I gave us a 19 for music.
Oh,
very hot music.
Nice.
And I give it a 6 for lyrics. I think lyrics are pretty good. I think there's a debate, and maybe someone in the comments will remind me. I've seen and heard both fiend and friend in this song.
Where does that lyric turn up?
Ask some kindly free friend.
Oh, so yeah. I've
heard fiend and friend.
Yeah, I've only ever heard friend. I think
it's fiend on the new D'Oyly cart.
It's friend in the Bradley, and it doesn't mention the fiend thing.
So
where did you hear that? That's interesting.
That's the new D'Oyly cart recording. So what I'll do is I'll put a little text here if I'm right, and if I'm wrong, it'll say no.
Ask a kindly fiend to crack you.
But someone knows why that is. Tell me.
No.
Narrative importance. I gave it a 1. And the reason I gave it a 1 for narrative importance is because...
You don't miss it if it's gone.
I think that the dialogue with Phoebe here and before Were I Thy Bride is sufficient.
I 100% agree that it's sufficient, but I only give something less than a 5 for narrative importance if it actively obstructs the narrative. So perhaps your criteria for that are just a bit different.
No, I completely. I think you're right.
Yeah.
So I think my criteria here was sort of that, and that at this point, more of Wilfred's psychology is not crucial to the narrative in a way that Dr. Daly's psychology, again, as my standard for a song someone singing about themselves. I think Dr. Daly's song has knowing who he is on the inside affects his scenes more going forward.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Wilfred coming in again before Were I Thy Bride is sort of his next big moment. I feel like is just the same whether he sang the song or not.
Yeah.
I gave it a 7 for dramatic impact though, because it's so cool, and a 7 for comedic.
I love it, yeah.
So for comedy and drama, I'm into it.
Yeah, so I think my last 2 scores are the same as yours. Yeah, I gave it a 7 and an 8 for dramatic and comedy.
So we like Jealous Torments, and I think
it's great.
People should probably do it more.
Yeah,
I would say. If we move past that, we come to Utopia Limited.
Utopia Limited.
Some 7 men form an association.
Oh, okay. You know what? I am actually quite glad that this came up higher in your list. I was a bit sad that it came low in my list, but I couldn't think of what score to diddle to kind of bring it up. Because I love it musically. And actually it was you sending me your version of it where you added an electric guitar into it. Which really made me realize how much of a groove it is. And again, much like First You're Born, actually, my favorite bit of it is just the intro to it. And then bum 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 bum. And what's so cool about it is that the even though it's so simple, the orchestra part, when the key changes and those, is it a clarinet that comes in? Or am I imagining that?
There's a woodwind break, yes.
Yeah. But when the key changes and that woodwind comes in, it's like, there's such tension there. And I think the only reason I think I gave this mostly 6s, I gave it a 16 for music, then I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I think the lyrics are good. They're fine. Gilbert's normal goodness. Narrative importance, I gave a 5 to, because I didn't feel like the intricacies, if that's a word, of this concept of a limited company is actually particularly relevant to the plot of Utopia Limited. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I've never really... basically, it is important, but it could have been explained in far fewer words than what they're saying. And I don't particularly... I feel like they're both taking a long time to say something. And then again, oh God, how do I say this? They take a really long time to get out too little information. I actually feel like they should have included more information in this song. I feel like we're missing a chunk of the story. Like, why did the company fail? Like, give us more information. Like, I want to know what happened. So I feel like it's kind of simultaneously going on too long and not giving you enough information. And that's why I gave it a 5 for narrative of importance. It should have got a 10 if I think it was explained better. I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact and a 6 for comedic value. I think apart from the music, I don't find it particularly dramatic. I also don't think it's particularly funny. If possible, all peers and baronets. That's quite good. I find it more just sad and true and very relevant than funny. I don't know. It's almost too good, this satire. And I wonder if actually that coloured my opinion of it when I was making these scores, because I'm thinking of the current state this country is in, and it's because of precisely this, the content of this song. It's because of capitalism, and it just makes me so sad in a way. I don't know, but I love the music and it's a groove. And I just wish that the lyrics explained better what a limited company actually was, as I come away still not really understanding it. So that's my piece on it.
I think you're 100% right about all of the above. Too little information over too long a period of time. And the thing that I appreciate your comments on the version I did in my show, which was the sort of thing where I'm like, this is how I hear this song in my head. When I first heard this song, I thought it was something from the future. And when that triangle comes in and like, I'm like, this is Victor Herbert. This is already like 2 decades ahead of the curve. Like, it has a melodic similarity to He Won't Be Happy Till He Gets It from Babes in Toyland. And like, there's
I've
like
never seen that.
You'll see it maybe.
I'll see it maybe.
Yeah. But like, there's like a jauntiness to this and a harmonic interest that I think this is true of the last 2 operas. It's true of Beauty Stone and Rose of Persia and Emerald Isle, where his music survives, that he's heading towards the new century.
I remember actually when you MD this in 2016, I remember you helping out the guy playing the part by kind of tapping your stick. You were kind of giving him a swing. And so I could definitely see that you were kind of hearing something that isn't explicit. And I like that. And now I hear that too when I hear it.
When this song is 6/8. But it might as well be swung 8th notes in 2/4.
Yes.
And it's like, so adding the guitar to that was a way I could get that flavor. And yeah, a lot of folks who sing this, I think this is true a little bit of Michael Rayner on the recording in 76, is like, it's very easy to sing duple. Like da 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 da, where it doesn't have like the 8th notes, the quavers, they're not far enough apart. Da, 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 da. You know me, I'm always like, when people are singing the dotted rhythms, they always sound like triplets. And when they sing the triplets, they always sound like duple quavers. And I'm always like, no.
For you are such a such a smart little craft. She is such a smart little craft.
Yeah, well, that is the
I remember that was a whole thing, that like none of us could ever get that quite as you wanted it. That's so hard to get.
All right, a little tight, a little slide, a little da, da, da. Yeah, that's nasty. But I'll give up on that one. I will not give up on Bridesmaids Be, as opposed to Bridesmaids Be. Bridesmaids Be. So you got to get a little bit of that rhythm there. So some 7 men, 15 for music, 6 for lyrics. I think that the lyrics here, it's shady, but it's sanctified by custom. Bank, railway loan, or Panama Canal. It's so wild to hear such topical references in the show as it comes out. It's actually wild because I think Goldberry kind of has 2 songs in a row. He has his intro and then he has this. And
it does. Yeah.
Ginger Pops and Peppermint Drops is so much less pointed than literally Panama Canal. Like, one of those things is way different than the other in terms of its severity to the global landscape. And the fact that Goldberry will admit that it's shady, but everybody does it. So I think that there's something really revealing. I like a song like this that reveals a lot about the person singing it.
I mean, honestly, like when I think about, I used to not value Utopia Limited very highly, and a big part of that was because I thought that it had no stakes. I didn't think it had like any real tension apart from with Scaffio and Fantas. But in the current economic climate, I like feel like crying when I hear this song and when I hear the Act 2 finale. And I think it almost has more stakes than any of them now. And the fact that it's so jaunty and sinister, and we haven't come to that exactly, but we're heading rapidly in that direction. It's like, it's the fact that like that Gilbert and Sullivan are dead now. They were right. It's so, I find that so scary. I find this opera like the most relevant and the most frightening in a way. And this is the heart of it, like this bit. Ugh.
You're 100% right. And I think this is why I've always liked this show. It's because it is sinister. And because people often are like, oh, I don't like any of the characters. Well, sometimes that's life. Like sometimes this is one of those shows where like the satire.
Pirates of Penzance doesn't really have any characters in it. Gondoliers doesn't really have any characters.
But they're lovable. The thing about Utopia's characters is there aren't really that many lovable people in Utopia. This isn't a cuddly show. But
I also think it's because people haven't really had the chance to make them lovable.
Fair.
Like, I don't know. I feel that's just the characters being done over and over and over again and having like iconic value.
But we both I think agree that this in its own ways Utopia Limited is a tragic show, and that that even at the end, I mean, I've always been struck by this ending, which goes like this.
Yeah.
This that nasty try.
Yeah, it's like, definitely like this is not a good thing that has happened to these people.
Yeah, exactly right. That's something that they're saying born on the gale, and this is not going to go right. So I think there's
and you just and like if I had like £1 million, like what would happen is I would build a set for Utopia Limited, and then in that you'd see that just dissolve during that bit. You'd see like everything that was important to these people has just been eroded and replaced with this.
The production we did at Blue Hill Troop was so brilliant back in 2012, where Gary Slavin had during Society the set change. There was a set change in the middle of Society where
that's so good.
Everything, like all the beautiful stuff, turned into like waste refineries and everything. And
that's so clever. Oh my god! I mean, I know that man's a genius, but still, that is so clever.
And at the end, Scaffio and Fantas didn't get taken off to be executed or anything. They came back on in new costumes as members of two new political parties who were going to like reclaim under like everybody, all of the cockroaches find a way to survive. And I think that was sort of the thing that Scaffio and Fantas, like, they don't have an ending.
I haven't made up my mind about what I want to do with Scaffio and Fantas at the end when I do it. I don't know what I find. I think I kind of like to see them. I don't know. I haven't decided anyway.
So let's proceed then.
Love it.
Number 13. The air is charged. Time was from the.
Oh, I love this one. I didn't put it too high. I think I had it as my number 16, but I love it. I gave it a 14 for music. I think it's Sullivan's standard. I gave it an 8 for lyrics. Did I? Hold on. No, I gave it a 9 for lyrics. I absolutely love the lyrics in this song. I think they are beautiful, both poetically and in painting a picture of a character. I only gave it a 6 for narrative importance. I think that's because it's more character focused than story focused. And as you were saying earlier, Dr. Daly isn't an extremely important part of the main story. I gave it a 6 for dramatic impact. And I think that's because it is just a little bit more muted and a bit more sedentary. Is that the right word? Stately. It's just a little bit calmer. And And I gave it a 6 for comedic value because I didn't think it was very funny. I think just where this song shines is its character portrayal and its poetry. And its music is lovely. But I didn't think it was particularly dramatic or funny. That was why it came relatively low for me.
No, we're not far off in our rankings here on this one. My music is a 17 on this. This is one of the songs that when I first got into Sorcerer that I dove into. I sang this in Central Park when I was 19 years old.
Oh!
And I was like so into this song, and I've always loved this character so much, and it's a big favorite for people who love Sorcerer, who love this show, who love Dr. Daly. Like, this is one of the great emblematic baritone songs, like Fair Moon, because it's so beautiful. A 17 for music, a 9 for lyrics, exactly like you. I think the lyrics here are incredibly poignant. Narrative importance is 7, again, because though Dr. Daly doesn't affect the Sorcerer plot too much, he has a lot of material, and this song does inform how he acts in the dialogues to follow. And I think that, like,
absolutely, yeah. And I think that, honestly, thinking about my dialogue video as well, I do think that Dr. Daly is a really well-crafted character, and that absolutely everything he says and does, he really represents himself. And he never strays from that. Like, so where King Paraman is like bottom of that, I think he's a really great one.
I think your video on the Sorcerer dialogue was strong in that respect, where you were commenting on Marmaduke as well, like characters that everything they say is kind of that character only could say it that way, which is good writing. It's gonna work well for you. It's
great writing. I think that Gilbert, you can really tell which characters he took the time or just was able to get into the heads of, and that's why I think that on the whole, his male characters tend to be a bit more interesting than his female characters, apart from when they're a bit of a subversion, so like Julia and Princess Ida.
No, I don't disagree, and it's a shame, but it's definitely the way it is. Just in terms of sheer numbers, he's even got more men in his shows too.
Absolutely.
Dramatic impact an 8. If it suffers anywhere in that category, which I tried not to consider, it's tough that the show starts with 2 slow recits and ballads in a row.
That's the thing. It's just it's like a series of character introductions, really, isn't it?
And comedic value a 4. I had a headache, had I a cold? I guess that's funny. There's a lyric I've always wanted. I had no care, no jealous doubts hung o'er me, for I was loved beyond all other men. I've always wanted, and I think it's counterintuitive in a way, for that last line, I was loved beyond all other men, to not be him convincing himself 100%, but to just have a slight shade of, but now that I'm this old, am I just misremembering? Was I really loved that much? And I wonder, he's going, I never fell in love, and maybe I was never meant to. Maybe I was misinterpreting things, and I think that in a way that you can color that wrong. But the thought that maybe in his age, as an old fogey, he's saying, I was loved beyond all other men. Wasn't I? Yeah, like that. Yes, the Gilded Dukes on me, because it has the music that's in the music, I think, is how I feel it.
Yeah. The music is lovely. I mean, it really captures a state of mind. I love the key change in the verses.
Absolutely.
Da, 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 da.
As far as recits go, when you see this show with the orchestra.
Oh, I love the recit. Oh, yes.
Every time you hear that, it's wonderful.
Yes, please.
And we all know this sounds like Rocky Mountain. I always hear
oh my God.
Every time.
Maybe he thought that because at that point he hadn't written Pirates yet, so he thought, I'll use that in Thespis, I could just reuse that here. Oh, interesting.
Could be. So and I like that you've got all this oboe usage, which I think foreshadows the flageolet, which we'll get to. A little bit. So we love this song. It's good.
I love this one. Yeah.
And we should proceed.
Yes.
Number 12, from Princess Ida, some years ago, no doubt you know, from the Act 2.
Yeah, this was one that I thought was significant enough to pull out of, well, in this case it's an Act 2 finale, but a finale.
I agree with you.
I love this number. I absolutely adore the Act 2 finale of Princess Ida. I think that it's just perfect in terms of narrative comedy, etc. With my Act 1-5 video, I'm going to have such struggles because they're all really good, and I don't know how I'm going to do that one. But I find this just so exciting and so charged with tension. I think so. I'm trying to find it in my list. So yeah, I gave it number 6. It got number 6 for me, because it really kind of encapsulates, I think, Hildebrand's quite methodical attitude in getting this sorted out, while there's literally men having invaded behind him. And I think it's a really interesting kind of juxtaposition. You've got violence going on, and he's just being, no, I'm going to be reasonable.
Absolutely.
See what I mean? I find it like, well, we'll let bygones go by. But if you choose to sulk on a blues, it's just, we'll storm your halls and level your walls in the twinkling of an eye. I think it sounds very calm, which is a juxtaposition to what he's actually saying. But then there's this sinister tension in the orchestra. It makes me kind of feel something in my chest. I like it. I gave it a 17 for music. Mm.
Yeah, this is one of the most underrated numbers in all of GNS.
I love it.
I think for me, it's molto vivace con fuoco in the score, which you wouldn't know it by the way Malcolm Sargent conducts it. If you listen to the recordings,
some years ago,
you sort of get like, there's the one 1965 with Kenneth Sanford's like, some years ago, no doubt you know. Whereas, like, if you
you
go back to like the 1920s, like the acoustic recordings, you're getting.
Years ago, no doubt you know, and if you don't, I'll tell you so. I just love the conversational quality of it. I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I think that some years ago, no doubt you know, and sorry, some what is it?
Some years ago, no doubt you know, and if you don't...
some years ago, no doubt you know, and if you don't, I'll tell you so. All right, Gilbert, it's not his best poetry. But narrative importance, 9, because this is just a critical moment of the plot. It's the climax, really, or it's just slightly precedes the climax. 8 for dramatic impact. I just, from what I've said earlier, like the music and just the tension it evokes, I only gave it a 6 for comedic value because it's not really funny. But I didn't want to give it lower than that because it's still witty and it still contains stuff that is silly / amusing. It's just not laugh out loud funny.
Sure.
But yeah, I love this number.
18 for music for me. And I think one thing I'm noticing right now that I love is here's a case where Sullivan repeats text just because he wants to repeat text. He's got, for brides or bride that not were tied at the early age of 1, a vow you make you, and he does a vow you make you must not break again in a new melody, which the first one is a vow you make you must not break, and it's very intense. And then he's got
and his repeating of those lyrics is really important dramatically, and it because it restates it, just in case you've not heard it.
There's this scale that's actually quite friendly. That's
what I mean. And then there's lovely little flutes.
This is a nasty.
So it's like Iolanthe-esque. It's like this really friendly, sweet, let's do a deal, Princess Ida song. All while there's a very real violent threat. I find it really interesting. I love it.
Listen to this. What is he up to? Man, Sullivan,
what is he up to?
You are hanging out.
What's he doing?
Some very exciting dens, I think. I've given it a 7 for lyrics, a 9 for narrative importance, an 8 for dramatic impact, and a 1 for comedic value.
Oh, that's why it didn't get higher. Yeah, I guess because the thing is, I suppose when I'm thinking of comedic value, as I said in another video, I'm not necessarily thinking about it being laugh out loud funny. I'm just thinking of it as being witty or being clever,
Well, I mean, to fit the wit of a bit of a chit is like, it's so goofy, but Sullivan helps Gilbert pull it off. I love this song. Here's a case where I think Hildebrand is a very tiny part, but I would love to do a whole production just to get to do this with an orchestra, this bit.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's intense. I mean, when I directed it, I had a table against the table, the luncheon table was against the wall and the ladies were trapped behind it. And this guy's just walking around,
Yeah.
explaining what the deal is. And it's dark. It is so dark.
Yeah.
Princess Ida rules. It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Good music in it. Should we look at the next one?
Yeah.
This is from the Grand Duke, number 11, Take My Advice When Deep in Debt.
Yeah. So I had this as number 15. I like it. It's a good one. I love the music. I gave it a 16. It's mostly for the orchestration, but the vocal line's good as well. I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I love the French. I think the poetry is lovely. Narrative importance, that's where it is a little weak for me. I gave it a 5. I feel like it's mostly just meant to be a show-stopping number that the prince get to sing, but it's nothing to do with the plot, really. They could have just not had this song at all. Dramatic impact, though, I gave an 8. I absolutely love the... It's just got like a real show-stopping quality to it. And there's a chance to do something very visual as well. But even if you're not doing anything visual, just the power of the voice, the power of the vocal, and the percussion, and just great. And I gave it a 6 for comedic value because it's funny because he's singing in French, but it's not like hilarious.
For sure. I this has always been a favorite of mine. It's got a 17 for music, which is delightful. This is a case where he's got the same verse 3 times with a slight exception where it slows down in the third, and I don't mind it. Very rare. 9 for lyrics. Oh, they're so clever. And
they're really good, yeah.
But big into French, so I'm super excited about that. Narrative importance, I'm a little more generous here. I give it a 6 because in a weird way, I do feel like, yes, the main plot of Grand Duke does not have that much to do with the prince or the roulette. But insofar as time is spent talking about roulette and the prince getting there, and the fact that it's going to show up in the cut bit that we like to put back in with the Wheel of Fortune, like it is kind of important. And I keep thinking about the fact that it was cut early on in the original production. And the thought of having this show without this song is insane. And we did it.
It's like the idea of a more humane Mikado being cut, isn't it? It's the same
thing.
It's just hard to imagine that.
We made it a duet with Forbear.
The little balls are flirt in red. She flirts with black, she flirts with red.
From this to that, she ups and backs and back to this as if in doubt.
To call us thoughtless were unkind.
The child is making up her mind.
For all the world, like all the rest, which prétendant will play the best.
We did. Nice. Because I think it's a shame that the princess doesn't get more of that joint vibe.
Sure. She should be.
Because they're coming on as a duo, so it's weird to me that she doesn't really get much.
Fair. So we made a nice duet where they ping-ponged and sang a little bit.
Yeah.
Dramatic impact a 9, show-stopping completely.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an absolute showstopper.
I think that people have to never cut a number because they think it doesn't further the narrative if the song is cool.
100%. Yeah, I'm completely with you there. Yeah.
It's like... I've always enjoyed musicals that are about the numbers more than about the show. Like I want somebody to blow me away and then we all cheer, and I don't necessarily. Yeah, I
don't think there's a problem with songs that don't further the narrative. I just think the songs that do everything, including furthering the narrative, are usually the better ones.
They're very emotionally impactful. Because they exist in GNS, we have to give that credit. And comedic value an 8. Because in the song, he makes it sound like a ball could decide where it goes. So we like that.
Yeah, I guess that is amusing.
Not every ball can do that.
That's true.
So that's the roulette song. One of the greatest hits. A song that definitely brought the house down when they revived this in the 70s. I think like everybody since is like, oh yeah, you got to do that.
And not even the best baritone aria in Grand Duke.
It's not going to be. Number 10.
There are still.
About a century since from the Grand Duke.
Yay! Where did I put this one? I put this number 11, actually. So I put this really close to you. I love this number. I think musically it's wonderful. I gave it a 16. I gave it a 7 for lyrics, a 7 for narrative importance. I know that it is explaining something which is extremely important to the show, but it's explained so much that I don't think. I mean, you'd never cut this song. Of course you wouldn't. That would be deranged. But if you were to cut this song, you'd still know what a statutory due was. 7 for dramatic impact. I think it's dramatic enough, but it's not overly dramatic. And 7 for comedic value. I love the goest business. It's great. All in all, like, it's a really well-rounded number. I think it ticks every box. There's no category where it really excelled, but I think it does everything pretty well.
I think it's an underrated hit. I put it in my solo show. I mean, I've always found it to be a real tidy piece of work, particularly when it's taken at a clip. And you have a lot of scope for choreography and actually action.
There's lots of little music bits where you can do stuff in them.
Quarrel, they may not fight with falchions bright, which seem to him immoral, but each a card shall draw, and he who draws the lowest shall, so 'twas said, be henceforth dead. In fact, a legal goest. When exigence of rhyme compels, orthography forgoes her spells, and ghost is written goest.
Which we took advantage of when we did it, and in the summer when we did it, when we were just performers and not directing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've given it an 18 for music.
Yeah.
I've given it a 9 for lyrics. These lyrics are when it's like, it's too clever for its own good in a way that I find very admirable, because the character makes sense. A 9 for narrative importance. I think that I see what you mean about it not being that essential that we know every little detail of how this works. But I think that why this has happened is so convoluted that it amuses me. And I'm glad that this much time is put into explaining.
That is true. And actually, I do think that narrative is better when it's explained through song, generally. And this is one of those times where, well, I'm going to explain it to you through song. And so I definitely love that this song is there. And I think it is great narratively.
Dramatic impact of 5. My shame here is it's tucked away in a series of quintet numbers in a dialogue scene, and it doesn't have a huge button. Like, I don't think this is meant to stop the show. It's just like, it's so pleasant that it almost doesn't announce itself as like, here's like diamonds, hearts, and spades is the showstopper. So, and a 7 for comedic value, because goest.
Yeah, that's the big joke that is like, that is very, very funny. But the rest of it's pretty funny as well. But that is the big joke.
And when you get the harmony, you got a quintet harmony that you don't normally get to see in GNS in this way. It's like a little unusual set of harmony parts that we all definitely enjoy. So when you've sung this number, I've sung this number, I've done a couple characters in it. Because
I've played Julia 3 times, but I've actually sung the top line as Julia 1 time because we had a mezzo as Lisa. And but I must say, I really enjoy singing that second line, especially as like a main soprano character when he gets to do the harmony. I love that. That's because I love harmonies. And that's a great line.
For sure.
It's a great harmony line.
I've done Ludwig and the notary parts, and you get things like they're so close together. And
it's like crunchy.
And you're right. There's a curious thing here where there's Lisa is second on the staff, but she is the highest harmony. So she gets so there's a little bit of a quirky thing there. This is a hit number, and I think more people need to just do this song.
Agreed.
Only.
I am so interested because there are items now on this list where you have not yet discussed my number 19 out of 24. You've not yet discussed my 14. That's crazy, man.
Well, you have not yet discussed my. Oh my gosh. I think how dramatically I rank this stuff in terms of like willingness to give low ratings has meant that we've already talked about all my low ranked things.
Yeah.
So that said, your low ranked things are going to get brought way up too. So we'll see how those go. Now, we're at the only remaining tie on our joint list. Currently tied for 8th place is Your Loyalty Are Ducal Heartstrings Touches at the Outset I May Mention from the Grand Duke. And from Sorcerer,
so let me tell you where those two are on my list. I have those two as number 19. And what was the other one?
Sorcerer, Oh My Voice Is Sad and Low.
Yeah, I have that as number 19 and number 8. That is how differently I rank those songs. And you think they tie?
I don't think they tie. I have At the Outset I May Mention as number 4.
Oh, come on.
and I have Oh My Voice Is Sad and Low as number 10.
Okay, so that's not
now obviously. I mean, we're gonna have to duke it out. No pun intended.
Okay, so let's see if we can convince each other to dock or gain a point.
Yeah.
So for music, I gave the Greek song a 15. I do like it musically. I very much preferred your improved version where the third verse is different. I think it's very long and not enough stuff happens musically. But I did give it a 15. I do think it is really good. I gave it an 8 for lyrics. I think the lyrics are very skillfully done and they trip off the tongue really nicely. What's that line about Dionysia nor Bacchic? What's that line?
I don't remember anymore. I did it last year.
It's the thing about dancing.
Yeah, I know.
Then come rather risky dances under circus.
Our lovely friend Kenneth Sanford doesn't really know what to do with this one on the recording. He's sort of a little like lopsided. But if you were to do it exactly as Sullivan has it, Corybantian maniac kick, Dionysiac or back kick. So it's a
I really like. I just really enjoy the scansion of this song. It gets into my brain in a really nice way. I will tell you where I marked it relatively low. I gave it a 5 for narrative importance, and I really can't see how you're going to convince me to give that any higher, because it doesn't even tell you anything about Ludwig as a character. It's literally just a song about what they do in Greece. And it's not even relevant to the story, because the thing is, you'd think, okay, well, we're in Greece now, perhaps we're going to see some Greek stuff going on, but we don't. Like, nothing actually Greek happens. Then dramatic impact of 6. I think that, when you did it, when you changed the orchestration, I did think I would probably have given out a higher mark. But since you marked Britain Ruled the Waves, where it originally sat, I think it's only fair to do the same with this one. I gave it a 6. I think, it's fun. I just don't think it's a showstopper. And I gave it a 7 for comedic value. And I think that even is generous, because I don't think there's a single point in it where I'd like laugh out loud. It's just like, it's witty. It's like well put together and well done. But I don't know. Where would you say I should give that another mark? Like what have you done? What have you given?
I have an 18 for music, and I think it's unhinged musically a little bit for me. So it's so quirky. And I think that when we did it originally in 2018, George Ireland and I came up with like a jazzy piano arrangement.
On reconsideration, there are customs of that nation which are not in strict accordance with the habits of our day. And when I come to qualify their rules, I need to modify on Mrs. Grundy Black's mail. What I do to say, for they had Macintoshes or umbrellas or galoshes, and the shower with their dresses must have played the very deuce, and it must have been a-pleasing when they got a bit of sneezing, but it seems the pocket handkerchiefs they didn't know they used.
Which then kind of inspired the one we did in this past summer.
For they hadn't Macintoshes or umbrellas or galoshes, and to shower with their dresses must have played the very deuce. And it must have been unpleasing when they caught a fit of sneezing, but it seems the pocket handkerchiefs they didn't know they used.
Lyrics had given a 9. They're so smart.
No, that actually, moving from an 8 to a 9 is probably the only thing I consider at this point, because the lyrics are very well constructed.
He's got ancient Greek lines in there that...
Yeah, no, it is very good.
Clean. Yeah. I just see the audience reading the libretto along at opening night, just thinking that they're having a drug trip. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Narrative importance a 5. I get it. This is the one I campaigned for. We each had some campaigns we made this last summer. Mm-hmm. We were going to do one verse of this, and I campaigned a bit to do more, and we ended up doing 3, which was great. We did the whole thing, and they got a spotlight for it, which was again, like, it was like, instead of thinking the number was a bug, we went, what if this is just a feature? What if we make this, like, we got a guy who knows it, have him sing the song. And I appreciated that we had that courage, which is why the dramatic impact for me, having done it twice and directed it once with someone else in the part, I see it 10. To me, this is like, you are sitting back from interval, you've got this wonderful opening chorus, and now this number should make you feel like you're going to be tapping your toe for the rest of your life. And comedic value, a 10. Because all the funny dancing you can do while you do it. And not just funny.
Yeah, but you can do funny dancing in any song.
Yeah, but you also told me that there was sexy dancing in it.
What?
In the one we did last summer.
In the one we just did in the summer?
Yeah.
No, you made it sexy, but I don't think the lyrics are intentionally sexy, like inherently sexy.
But I guess I'm taking that like...
That was your characterization of Ludwig.
But I think my sighing softly to the river principle of like, well, the potential is there to do it and it doesn't obstruct the song. Like, to me, again, it's like hearing it, like I hear it in this song, and I wanted to bring it out, and we get some value there. Let's talk about the other one.
Yes, yeah. Let's talk about the other one. And so the only place where I'd be maybe willing to give it one more mark is lyrics. But let's talk about the other one. So, Oh My Voice is Sad and Low. I gave this, I'll talk about the music last. I gave it a 7 for lyrics. I think it's Gilbert standard good. 8 for narrative importance. I think this one is more important to the narrative than a lot of the ones we've been talking about, because it reminds us of his situation, and it reminds us of the situation in general, and it perfectly succeeds Aline's very emotional number, and then perfectly precedes them meeting and getting together briefly. I think it's really perfectly narratively placed. It's gentle comedy, which I gave an 8 to. I think it's just the perfect starter for the big misunderstanding / confusion that's about to happen. And it just follows so nicely from that very big emotional moment. It gives the audience a bit of a break from feeling something very profound, and it helps them just chill out a bit. So I like that. Dramatic impact, I gave a 7 to. I don't think it's particularly crazy dramatic, but I do think just the goodness of it, especially musically, I do just think gives it that 7. I gave it a 15 musically. I actually think I could have given it higher. I listened to it again on the way home earlier, and I would actually use the same word for this that you used the other one. It's unhinged. That it's modal. It's so strange, that flageolet part. The and the do. There's kind of bowed bass notes. Is that right? That kind of go underneath it. I find that just so dark, like really deliciously dark. I love that so much.
I think this. It's a case where the playing of it can change so well, because like if it comes off as, sorry, D's are sharp, but if you're thinking,
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And I think that you just have to tell like full quavers to the orchestra, and you'll get a little bit of a different flavor to it.
It's like a kind of weird robot mechanical doll. It's creepy, and it just perfectly, and I know that we had Dr. Daly playing it drunk one time we did it, and I think that really kind of helped to encapsulate that feeling when like your brain is kind of betraying you a bit, because if you remember that ethereal, lovely woodwind beginning to his initial recit, time was, that like this now is like his brain splintered and a bit broken. It's got, like, as you were saying, you got the birth of the woodwind flageolet relationship with Dr. Daly in that first number, but this one just splinters it. And I just think this number is both hilarious and sinister, but it still manages to be wholesome, and I just absolutely love it.
It always had a strong effect on me. I have some bias to the part that I've played more. I've only ever done Dr. Daly in a concert, so I've never done the part. And I have enjoyed playing it in concerts because so-and-so always gets a huge laugh. So you go, okay, well, at least I'm getting a big laugh out of this. And I've given it a high comedic value for that, a 9. Perhaps my tastes are unusual if I'm thinking that the obtuse type of comedy like kills more than just so-and-so, which is so relatable and understandable.
Yeah, but you know what? I didn't really think that was the funny part of it. I just generally find his frustration funny, because it's just so relatable. I wasn't even thinking of the so-and-so being a big payoff.
Well, and this number, I think we're sort of seeing a little bit of an interesting comparison here, because this number is about 1/3 the length of the other one. It's so brief, this song. And once it gets going, it's really arrested in 2 verses. And
actually, like, what's weird is that you feel like half of the second verse is missing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a long.
It is odd.
It's because it's recit. It's almost like a refrain, but then it's just verse. So what
music score did you give it?
I've given it a 15. I've given it a 15.
Okay, so that's exactly what I gave it. Interesting.
I think that I've given it lyrics a 7.
Yeah, I think I gave it high, didn't I? I gave it a 7 as well.
He's so bitter. And I think that the first verse is great. I think what a rogue young hearts to pillage, what a worker on love's tillage isn't quite as strong as the first verse, but we get there. And then an 8 for narrative importance for the reasons you say, 9 for dramatic impact for the reasons you say of how well it segues. It's whenever this number comes up, I'm like, okay, now we're in for the final haul. Like after Nina sung her thing, Dr. Daly comes on and I go, it's about to get real. We're going to have the final climax of Sorcerer. Comedic value a 9, yeah. So this is.
So you actually gave it higher than I gave it.
Yes, I've given it, but my criteria is a little different. But I have 48 to your 45. If I were
go on.
If I were to change a score, I'd actually lower the lyrics by 1. But I don't know if I'm trying to think if I'd increase anything. I might even consider, but I might consider increasing the music.
You see, I feel from everything we've been talking about with these 2 numbers, like either I'm going to increase my lyric point from an 8 to 9 in the other number, or you're going to decrease those obese scores that you gave both dramatically and comedically. A 10 for both? Come on.
For the
loyalty or ducal heartstrings touch.
Again, I'm biased. I mean, we did it last summer, and I was like, yeah, this number's like, I felt like the David versus Goliath story of you should include all 3 verses because it will go over, and it did. And
you know what? Just to what's the word? Validate how incredible your performance of that song was. I will. Let's see. I'll give it a 7 rather than a 6 for dramatic impact. How about that?
You know what? I think a 6 is incredibly low for the.
That's the thing, actually. I think after considering I gave Dr. Daly's song a 7, and actually I consider them on a par dramatically. I actually do think that's a fair thing to increase.
You were in the show and you couldn't keep your eyes off the number.
Yeah, I loved it.
So that, I mean, so you.
But I love all of these numbers. That's the thing. I love all.
Okay, so you increase dramatic impact by 1, and then
that breaks the tie.
And then for Dr. Daly's song, why don't I increase music by 1, and then now we have another tie.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So, can we just keep a tie?
We can just keep it as a tie if you like. Let's keep it as a tie.
I feel like a tie is good, and because I really do think I was low. Now I'll tell you, if we increase both of these by 1, then they're actually going to be. They're going to be a 3-way tie. They're going to tie the next number. But
okay.
But I think that let's just say that we can raise our 2 scores, and that's lovely, and then we will still consider the next number to be above it.
Yes,
because I think that can just there's only so much we can.
I'm happy with that. That's fine. You still haven't said my number 14 yet, so I'm interested to see if that's going to come in the next.
Maybe that's coming up soon. Actually, let me find out if it's coming up soon. Oh my God, 14 for that? Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, hang on. We're almost there. Number 7. We're in the final.
What?
7.
Are we on number 7?
Well, because that was tied 8 and 9.
Oh, okay.
Number 7 is From the Mikado, Young Man Despair.
Yay, I like that. I think I had this one as number 5. So I had this one roughly the same. I think musically, this completely blows me away. I had no idea how good the music was of this one until making this list. It's dynamite, this one. There's so much stuff going on. I absolutely love it. And I love the harmony section that... Is it just the 2 guys at this point? It's not the chorus, isn't it?
It's the tenor and the supporting auxiliary band.
Yeah. I'm confusing it with the other one, which does have the ensemble in it. But they are. I love that harmony section. I think that is just glorious, and it almost knocks me out. I gave it an 8 for lyrics. I gave it an 8 for narrative importance. I could have given it more than 8 for narrative importance, actually, because it is pure narrative. And it seems to get across, like the guy singing it, it gets across his character as well, like very successfully. Because he manages to be very patronizing in it, I think. And I gave it a 7 for dramatic impact. Again, I think I could have even given that higher. But... yeah, I think it is hugely dramatic, mostly because of that harmony section, actually. So maybe not the actual vocal line, which again is a bit of a cheat. And then an 8 for comedic value. And it's mostly for these rhymes. It will not do... Is that to be of your pleasure a diminution?
Yes.
It's so
making
stupid.
It smaller.
I absolutely love that rhyme. I find that it crosses over from bad into becoming good again just because of how silly it is. And I am here for it.
I love this song. I've played all 3 principal baritone parts in this show at some point. And interestingly, the patter person is the biggest part, but I find has, for me, the least fun songs to sing. And then I actually think that this character, who's the lyric baritone, has better songs to sing, just less material. And then the auxiliary baritone has the song that I like the most. So I've always loved playing. I did this part with you and with Forbear at Eddington.
The brass will crash, and the trumpets play, and they'll cart and dash on their wedding day. She'll toddle away as all ever, with the Lord High Executioner.
You're right, musically it's dynamite, a 16 for me. Isn't it? It's like, and then just this 9/8 meter is so unusual. You almost don't know what beat you're on at the beginning, which is really cool. And it's got something that I think is very important to acknowledge, which is dotted rhythms versus triplets. Dum, dum, da-dum, dum, dum, da-dum, versus he then has dum, da-da-da-dum. So it's nice to have a little contrast there between those rhythms. The string lines, da-dum, ba-dum-ba-dum.
Yes! Ba-ra-ba-ba-bum. Yes, of course. Oh, they're amazing.
Incredible. And oh my gosh, if you do what we did with Blue Hill Troop, which is do not have an applause break, makes me so pleased. And have I journeyed for a month or nearly? So good.
Oh, this is lovely.
I love this one. An 8 for lyrics. Very clever. Narrative importance, I've given it a 10 for the reason you mentioned. I think it's like you couldn't abridge it. When I did the kids version of this show when I was 18 or 19. I was performing for children. We cut this in half, which didn't help. Dramatic impact, a 7, and comedic value, a 5. I think the reason I've given it a low comedic score relative is because I have negative feelings about how people underline the ablutioner joke, which is not fair to the material, I warrant. But I feel like, so if I have to see another production...
Sorry, can you explain that a bit more? What do you mean by that? Sorry.
The very imperfect ablutioner is like somebody who does not wash themselves well. And
yes, because you perform your nightly ablutions. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So he does that, and then the tenor, he will sniff his armpit or something. Like, I've seen that too many times.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't like any bodily humor in my Gilbert and Sullivan. Thank you very much. I find that the characters in these shows don't have bodies.
You made me sniff the Duchess's armpit when I played Casilda.
No? I made you. You could have said no. You directed the show. Well, you know what? That's different. That's family.
It's smelling perfume, I guess. It's different from smelling body odor.
Well, yeah. You know.
It's just funny. It's pretty much the exact same joke. You're like, I hate it.
Well, I hate this one because the music makes time that everybody then goes, well, I have to put something there.
Yeah.
That said, I love the old doily cart.
That is awkward. Sorry, go on.
The doily cart staging of this kind of number where nothing happens. I love it. Where
I think the Mikado works better when people barely move at all.
Yeah, just say that. I love playing this part for that reason. So I give this a pretty high score too. I think this is a stunning number and one of many stunning solos in this show. So we can give it a high ranking. Are you ready to get to the thing you've been waiting for? Number 6 is from Patience, a magnet hung in a hardware shop.
Yeah. So you see, I had actually put this quite a bit lower. I put this in number 14, but I still really like this song. So you can tell me why you gave it more marks. I gave it a 14 for music. I didn't think it excelled Sullivan's usual standard. I thought it was about on a par with the rest of the music from Patience. I gave it an 8 for lyrics. I do think the lyrics are great. The only reason I didn't give it higher, I think, is maybe it's not... I don't think the story is as comprehensible as it could be, but I do still appreciate it, and it's beautiful poetically. I gave it a 7 for narrative importance, because yes, Grosvenor is explaining this parable to kind of help the maidens understand his situation with them. But this story in particular is not directly relevant to the story. But it's not obstruction of the narrative. I still gave it a 7. I gave it a 7 for dramatic impact. It can be dramatic, but I just think it's not quite the same as some of the ones we haven't talked about yet. And, indeed some of the ones we have. It's not, let's think, what's one that's come really high dramatically? I mean, the one we were just talking about, some years ago, no doubt those are the ones I gave really high dramatic marks to. This one, I just don't think has the same stakes. I gave it a 7 for comedy. I don't think there's any laugh out loud jokes in it, but again, it is like, what a charming number. So I think I considered it to be kind of middle of the pack, but maybe you're seeing something in it that I didn't.
Well, I think here's another case of performer bias. I got to play this part against your Patience in 2018 at the festival.
Of course, yes.
It was very fun. And 17 for music for me. I think it's very clever, cute orchestration, a classic 2-verse Sullivan song where he's got perfect ideas that you love to hear exactly twice. And wonderful harmonic shifts. I think this is wonderful. A silver train. This kind of moment from...
Oh, really?
Patience has this particular color to it that the other operas don't have. I think Sullivan does have moments in some shows where you go, this number could only be in that opera. I think this is one of those examples for me. And with the lyrics, a 9. It has my favorite Gilbert puns ever. The needles opened their well-drilled eyes. The pen knives felt shut up. No doubt the scissors declared themselves cut out. The kettles they boiled with rage. Every nail went off its head. The hammer came up and drove them home. How he came up with that many hardware puns in a row that are all funny is amazing, which is why I've given it also a comedic value of 10. Because
okay. Wow, okay.
I think that it's so funny in the fact that this is a funny song if you have super titles.
I'm going to have to watch you doing this because I don't really remember your performance of this one. It was never one that I really watched from the front. So
I enjoyed it in the production. Yeah, I think that I had a little choreography and the ladies were very well staged. So
yeah,
narrative importance is 7. I completely agree that I don't think the narrative of the song itself is that comprehensible or even that applicable. But I think that like what it serves to do to like he needs a song here. Like it's like, yeah.
Oh, 100%. That's why I gave it a 7. It's like a perfectly serviceable song that's in a lovely place. It's just not really giving you a whole lot of information or character.
I guess for that dramatic impact, a 9 is why I've got that there because it's very memorable in its way. Yeah, I love Magnet song. It's got one of the greatest cues ever. Obviously, we don't know the fable of Magnet.
Then I'll tell it to you.
Yeah, it's so.
I love it.
It's so good, and it's how you say a good song.
I remember completely alienating myself from like a whole chorus of people because for some reason I got it in my head that everyone in the chorus said that line. But we don't know the fable of the magnet and the gem. For some reason, I thought that was like a line that everyone said.
Do you know what?
So I came in with it, and then the woman playing Angela was like, "That's my line." I was like, "Oh, I thought we all said it."
Do you know what? That has happened. Somebody.
Yeah, I'm sure someone did it that way.
I feel like that's the way it's done on the last night of the doily card in 1982, where like it's this big. But we don't know from everybody in the chorus.
Yeah, I'm sure I heard it like that. And I was so convinced that I just came in and said it.
It's okay.
And then everyone thought I was like trying to steal her.
Well, how about right now I put in the clip of me singing Josephine's line in HMS Pinafore?
Yes!
I'll find that clip. It's going to play right now. Yeah, it's a good bit. Sometimes you just think it's your line's about to happen.
It's the fact that she kind of hits you, like, even slightly before you do it. It's like she knows you're going to.
Well, you just get so used to repeating what the other person
can just
said.
but it's like she anticipates you making that mistake. It's like, no. I love it.
That is so good. I love making mistakes. So we're at the top 5. Anything else you want to say about Magnet?
No, just, yeah, I love it.
If we're ready to bang on, let me just go. I have some carrots in the oven. Can I go check on them?
Oh, yeah, do it.
Okay.
Okay. By the way, when you walked across the screen once, your feet were on a level with the people's heads. It looked so weird.
Oh my God.
It was really trippy.
Oh my gosh. I hope that I had some sound so it caught me doing that. Should I just do it again?
Yeah. Just walk. Just like do the walk that you did, because I feel like your feet.
So that we can.
Yeah, I feel like your feet were like up where their heads were. Yeah. Kind of. Oh, maybe your feet weren't where their heads were.
Well, let me just walk past anyway.
Yeah, just do it anyway.
Good?
Yeah, because you can. Yeah.
How's this?
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love it.
Yeah.
That's a good jig.
This picture was my desktop background on my computer for years and years and years. I love this. I love this poster. Wouldn't it be so good to go see Utopia Limited? I think, you know what? Controversial. I feel like I'd rather see the opening night of Utopia Limited than the opening night of Thespis.
Oh, of course. Oh, but you mean because Thespis, then we'd hear all the music?
Well, then I'd be like,
good,
I would be so stressed out trying to remember it all. And I'd rather see Utopia Limited and just see how much money it cost. I'd want to see this scene.
Yeah.
Because I don't think...
I mean, for me, it's just the whole spectacle of it. After reading a bit of that book from, who are the twins, Florence Perry and...
Emmy Owen.
Yeah. Reading their experiences about being in that show and just like Scafio and Fantas coming on and just I can't imagine what that must have felt like to be there. So different to the Gondoliers or like anything they've done before. It's amazing.
Utopia Limited, I've always said it's bonkers. It's, in fact, if I were to do a movie of all the GNS operas, that's the one that would be a cartoon.
Yeah, you said that to me before. Yeah,
because then you could. I just see explosions, and I want lots of explosions. Lots of explosions. All right, shall we go on?
Let's go on.
Number 5. Okay, here I just want to see where you've got this one. You've got this one at okay. You've got this one at 9, and I've got it at 3. This is "May It Please You, My Lud" from Travel.
I love it. I love this one.
Whoa, so good.
May it please you, my lord. And this is the only one in the entire list that I have played this part.
Swiftly fled each honeyed hour spent with this unmanly male. Camberwell became a bower, Peckham an Arcadian vale, a breathing concentrated Otto, an existence a la Otto.
Really? Oh, so what's your performer score for this?
I absolutely love this. I mean, it was a Zoom production. I did it with the University of Michigan during COVID. This song, like an 8. Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed this. I love how I think kind of verses 1 and 2 are roughly the same, but then verse 3 has a total change of direction, and verse 4 kind of continues that. And I love the orchestration. I love how funny it is. I just think it ticks every box. 16 for music, 7 for lyrics, and I totally could have given that higher. 8 for narrative importance. I think it continues the narrative extremely well, tells the whole backstory. Yeah, if anything, I've been stingy here. 7 for dramatic impact. I don't think it's terribly dramatic, if I'm honest. 7 for comedic value. I don't think it's laugh out loud funny, but it's still very good, and I'm very fond of this number for sure.
Much of what you said about why you like the usher in your bass video, I think applies here too. I mean, so much of the humor of this show comes from everybody being against the defendant. So everybody's for the plaintiff and against the defendant completely. Which is so amusing. First of all, and
there's that use of the word interesting as well. Do you know when I said in my video about how
see my interesting client,
this interesting ceremony in which she is to play so important a part, the weird use of the word interesting.
I like that very much.
It's funny, isn't it? So
we're coming out of silence in court from the usher, and the counsel just takes it over. May it please you, my lord. Oh, what did I do once? I was doing gently once, wasn't I? I was doing, I tell a lie. It was something else. No, I was doing, it was a concert I did where we did like a bunch of numbers from Princess Ida in a row. And the last one was, Would You Know the Kind of Maid? And I remember like, whatever the transition was, this was the next number. And I had to get the note from the previous song, and it was very fun. So if you ever have fun with this song, put it after a number in your concert that doesn't have an A flat as the first note, and then just do the math for yourself and figure it out, and then give yourself...
interesting.
Oh, it's always fun. Because you can learn it. You can learn it, and the reason why you know you can learn it is because there are definitely those moments, like, you do this often enough, and you'll eventually learn hush, hush, not a word. Right? You'll learn, even though F sharp is where you were with that top note, and then it becomes an F natural when you go to this key. So eventually you can learn any key change, but you have to like hear it a lot.
Yeah, just have to keep drilling it,
This song is so musically interesting to me. And I've always loved playing the counsel. It's my favorite part to play in Trial by Jury. I've gotten to play all of the male characters. And so nice. And there's even a sense that because it starts on 2 in cut time feel, with a set that when you come in the second time, I've made this mistake before where I've come in on the wrong beat, where it's like, see my interesting, it's kind of funny at places. And then you've got the next time you don't come in that way, you go, swiftly fed each honeyed hour. That's a different entrance the second time because you're on the beat. And then the next time,
what's so interesting, sorry, go on.
Well, then the final time you've got Watto picture them. So each verse, as you say, is different.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, it just struck me when you were playing that, like how the lyrics are funny and they mesh so well with the music, because it is kind of what people do say in courtrooms. With a sense of deep emotion, I approach this painful case, for I never had the notion that a man could be so base. It's just, because it's so emotional about something which is so frivolous. I love it.
You just set up one of my favorite GNS ad-libs, which is, man could be so base, and someone must shout, he's a tenor. Yeah, good, right? That's like say on. Yeah. So I love this melody. He deceived a girl confined.
Yes.
Then this chord. How's it set her ruddy riding? So nice. One of those cases where whenever the chorus repeats it, I think it's earned completely because the orchestration pulls out. Oh my goodness, I would love to see more productions of Trial by Jury with an orchestra. I feel like I always see it in concert. I've only ever done I've never been in a production of or conducted Trial by Jury in any capacity with an orchestra, which is...
I did one in Buxton, like very early on in my GNS career, in like 2009 or something. I wonder if there's a recording of it on GS Opera TV. It was some celebrity Trial by Jury. I was a bridesmaid at it. I've like no memories of it at all, but I know I did it.
Do you know, Trial by Jury was my first role at the festival or at all in GNS. It was 2010, and I was the foreman at Gettysburg when we had the festival in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, in an actual courthouse. So I got to be in an actual little jury box, which was nice. So I can say that I've served on a jury. If that makes any sense. So I've given it a 10 for lyrics. Yeah,
I can definitely see why that gets a 10 for lyrics.
It's full
perfect,
of detail.
Actually.
An existence a la Watto to rhyme with concentrated auto.
I think that's maybe why I docked at that couple of points, because I found that even though the lyrics are beautifully constructed, they didn't age 100% well. Like, not all of them are comprehensible today.
I think that I've generally tried to favor things like that at times. Maybe Gamboge and the Gill's an exception. If I feel like it's worth the effort to learn what the thing is. Knowing what these words are, I feel makes me pleased. Here's another beautiful thing musically. Musically, I give it a 19. We've got the maid had bought her trousseau. Cheer up, my pretty.
Oh, yes.
Oh, cheer up. And then again, Sullivan knows exactly what he's doing. This chord again, which now he's voiced as a G natural, a D flat, and an F flat, where before it was a G natural, a D flat, and an E natural. So those of you playing the game at home, you can play enharmonic bingo. I also love that it's also really a trio, because the plaintiff has a line, and the usher's got... Cheer up, cheer up, cheer up. That's his only little line. And then they do sing a harmony together, the three of them at the end, because it wouldn't really work with just the defendant and, the plaintiff and the counsel. The usher adds, and you get that. And then, of course, the chorus, which on the Doily Cart recording from the 60s, there's some basses that are clearly singing a low D flat. They're going, cheer up. and singing.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
I think that's very nice.
Cheer.
The whole jury singing "Cheer Up, We Love You" is so funny. So I've given this a 9 for comedic value. Dramatic impact is 7. I think sometimes for dramatic impact, I would lower something, even if for me this number is a 10. I think the average audience member doesn't feel it. And actually, one of the things that doesn't benefit this number dramatically is the second this ends, it goes into that's Trial by Jury. It just goes into a new idea that really is. Yeah, she can faint because of the ordeal of having to hear all these things again. But as soon as it's moved on to the next section, Trial by Jury is in the next section.
But for me, with dramatic impact, I think all of these songs so far are suffering from the one that I gave a 10 to.
Which was what?
Because I'm kind of, well, I've not said it yet.
Okay.
Because there is one song in this list which I gave a 10 to for dramatic impact. And if that one gets a 10... like, that's my watermark.
Understood.
In a way. And this is just nowhere near that. It's still great and I love it, but...
it's hard for anything in Trial by Jury to have that much dramatic impact.
That's the thing,
once it's over, like, the thing about Trial is the second a new song starts, you might remember the one you heard before, but you will not remember the one you heard 2 songs ago.
Yes.
So you're only ever remembering, like, 3 minutes of the show at a time. So this I've always found this to be underrated, and I've included it in concerts all the time. Even it's not considered like one of the big hit numbers, but
So our top 4 is the same. I mean, it might not be in the same order, but we have the same top 4.
No, not entirely, but the top 4 of this is true. The top 4 of your list is the top 4 of our list.
Yes.
The thing.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
May It Please You, My Lud was 3. At the Outset was 4. Magnet was 5. But 6, 7, 1, and 2 on mine are your 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're in pretty close order.
Okay.
So are you excited to know what these are going to be?
Yeah.
Number 4, from the Grand Duke is the Prince of Monte Carlo.
Of Monte Carlo, from Mediterranean water, has come to bestow on you his beautiful daughter. They've paid off all they owe, as every statesman utter, that Prince of Monte Carlo and his beautiful daughter.
Okay, this is my number 3. To me, this is one of those few songs that I just think, this is perfect musically. I love every single moment of this song musically, especially the final phrase.
The Prince of Monte Carlo, Monte Carlo, and his beautiful daughter, his beautiful daughter. The Prince of Monte Carlo, it's your beautiful daughter.
It's just, I adore this song. 20 for music, 7 for lyrics. They're like a tiny bit simplistic, but they're still very good. 8 for narrative importance, could even have given it higher. Like, this is pure narrative. This is, we've been waiting for these people to arrive the whole time. Their entrance was foreshadowed. 8 for dramatic impact. I only gave it a 6 for comedy, which I think is where it falls down for me. But apart from comedy, I think this is a divine number. I absolutely adore this song.
You won't find much disagreement from me. At this point, I think you'll understand all of our ratings are going to be pretty high. Prince of Monte Carlo gets an 18 for me musically. Again, I think for similar reasons you said that I have 19s and 20s. Here's a case where, like, the strings have this wonderful thing where they're arco, and then they have to play pits. Yum, plum, yum. That's so hard to do without a big gap. And what I'd love to do is do Grand Duke with, like, 32 string players in a very reverberant concert hall. So that really, because when you play it with the keyboard, you can have pedal. And you can really connect that chord to the pizzicato. So it'd be nice to have that. This number was encored in a tremendous way on the premiere.
I remember in the review, this song was mentioned as the best one, wasn't it?
Which is very funny because I've seen, and we've been in one recently, productions where it is cut like to.
And I find that egregious, honestly, because I think this is. You really have to get the full impact of this. You really have to get the full length of the song for it to have its impact, especially for that last phrase to be given its full dramatic value.
Absolutely. We did fight, our herald and I, we quickly fought for adding in like one more measure just to get a little more continuity. But I love singing in this one when we did our production. I've always, it's got such a unique flavor. 12/8, and it's one of these cases where like the herald's character is so clear because of how slow it is, and because it repeats the text so much, and because he's delivering these lines like needlessly over articulated. This is not a case like some Seven Men where we think that it's not great, that it's not a lot of information. There isn't that much information in this song. No,
but what it is delivering is enough. For sure.
What we've just had, again, if you don't cut it, which you shouldn't, is,
why, who is this approach?
We've got this, right? This big, trilly, busy, who is he? Then just... Sorry, anyone playing at home, I played it in E flat before, I'm so sorry.
But you know who this person is from the very first chord.
If that's one reason maybe our production was different, is the herald we had in the last one was not the herald, he was my butler. So it was like...
Yes, that's true. Yes, it was a slightly different concept, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then I sang that one bass line. It was a whole separate thing. But the B section is beautiful. The Prince of Monte Carlo, who is so very particular. I've given 7 for lyrics. Only because there could be more, maybe, but a 9 for narrative importance, and a 9 for dramatic impact, and an 8 for comedic value.
So you've given it higher marks than I gave it, actually.
It's a 51 to a 49. Yeah, but again, that's giving us a total of 100s. We've broken 100 for our totals.
Ah, yes.
And goodness, one thing I also missed this past summer was the chorus singing "His Doll," which
exactly that's my favorite bit.
Which is so similar to I guess you could say it's either D. Ryan Nixon or it's The Tales of Hoffmann, whichever opera you consider it came from. Barcarolle. Where the ahs at the end of the Barcarolle, which is also in kind of that's flowing.
Oh yeah, I know the one you mean, yeah. Because it's for me, it's a toss-up whether that moment or the bit at the end of the supernumerary song is like the most divine musical moment of the Grand Duke.
All you need is somebody to sing a nice vowel in harmony, and you've got gold. It's just.
I also love Strange the Views as well.
That's pretty similar. That's. Which you can maybe even argue is motivic, right? That's like on purpose.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But it's just lovely. That is, I really like that.
I just turned my score and I just found in my notes how all of my details for the harmonies for the following number.
Oh.
Because we had to go through considerable effort to cover all of those parts. There's my score. You can barely see it. Like Rudolph is the herald, I'm the costumier, and then...
Oh, yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that everything was covered. Because we had 8 people.
We managed it, though.
Mm-hmm. Sounded good. Yeah. Prince of Monte Carlo, a big hit, and everybody loves it, and no one should cut it. Number 3 on our lists.
Yeah.
From the Mikado on a Tree by a River.
Okay, so this was my number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I gave this an 18 out of 20 for music. I think it's simple, but there's something in it about its simplicity that just it brings about this really profound emotional response. Like a lot of actors have trouble crying on stage. I find it too easy. I have to stop myself. And this is one that if I even just hear the intro to this song, I could just be in tears. Like there's something about it that just makes me sad, but in a lovely way. I gave it a 9 for lyrics. I think the lyrics are incredibly skillful, incredibly beautiful. 8 for narrative importance. Yeah, it's not directly relevant to the plot, but its story is what brings the alto round to being in a relationship with him. So I think his delivery of it is extremely important. And it's the delivery and the emotion that's important narratively, but I think that still counts towards it. 8 for dramatic impact. It's dramatic just from creating this stillness. And it's so well placed after the alto's aria as well. It's just, and after her big impassioned speech and him going, where shall I find another? And he goes, here. I just remember when I first heard that in my sister's production of The Mikado when I was 16 years old. I just, these amateur university students doing it, that properly hit me, that did, when he said here and then sang the song. And I really believed by the end that they loved each other. And I think this is wonderful. I think it's so beautiful. I gave it an 8 for comedic value. I feel just as sure as I'm sure that my name isn't Willow, tit willow, tit willow. But I probably shall exclaim as I die. And it's like, how does Gilbert manage to make you laugh and cry in the space of 3 seconds? How does he do that? This song, I think, is just one of the most beautiful things in the canon for me. I absolutely love this.
It's so good. And one thing I regret about this song is I often see it in concerts. And I don't think it will ever have that impact without the material that surrounds it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it is very simple, and its simplicity needs to have the contrast of the aria before and the duet after and the scenes that surround. I've given it a 16 for music because it is beautiful and tender, and it's very tricky because it's very doubled, and the singers usually like to take a lot of flexibility with it. Mikado is not one of the shows I've conducted the orchestra of, but I played this role recently with orchestra. And I definitely remember like the orchestra had a kind of tricky time with it because of just how milky it can be and how easy it is to want to stretch here and there. So with piano, it's a little easy. 9 for lyrics. I think the first time I got to play this character, I was 18 or 19. And I've always been so moved by it to the point that you say I'm always in love with the alto by the time the song is over. Just for going through all this, to put myself through this, I believe it.
Those lyrics, if you remain shallow and obdurate, I will perish as he did, and you will know why. Oh, sorry, I said that wrong, didn't I? I'll say it again. If you remain shallow and obdurate, I will perish as he did, and you will know why.
Yes.
That is so satisfying.
It's even more callous and obdurate.
What did I say?
Shallow.
Shallow. Oh, funny.
That's good.
No, callous.
Yeah, I mean, what do I have here? I have, and if you remain my notes, callous and obdurate, I shall perish as he did, and you will know why. Though I probably shall not. These chords are just.
Oh, it's so good. Oh.
And as much time as you can take. And the whole audience is deathly silent. I've given it an 8 for narrative importance and a 10 for dramatic impact. And a 7 for comedic value. But you're right, the brilliance is how the comedy is baked into the tragedy perfectly.
I actually imagine a little bird in this song. I don't know if you do. I literally imagine a bird.
Oh, for sure. When I'm singing,
that's in love.
When you're hearing it, you do.
Yeah.
What's the bird's name? Dickie?
Richard the bird? Him. Yes, Richard the bird.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
I love it.
So we're at that point now. If I reveal number 2, you know what number 1 is.
Yes, but I'll not make a noise. I mean, I'll make a noise, but not one.
Well, I should keep the same score out because number 2 is our Great Mikado, Virtuous Man.
Okay, good, right.
Which on my list was number 2. So the strength of my
It was number 4 for me.
Very high ranking for both of us on this one.
I love this one. It was number 4 for me. I gave it a 17 out of 20 for music. Oh gosh, I'm having a mental block. How does this one go again? Play me a tiny bit of it. Hold on. Oh, it was the intro. I couldn't remember. There's so much stuff going on. Is it pits of bum 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 bum?
Yep.
Yeah. There's pits and the strings. And okay, so the first one I saw, so when my sister did it, which is the very first GNS show I ever saw, every time that little pits happened, who's on? The tenor would just like trot across the stage. And I thought that was like the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. So, because like the auxiliary baritone, he'd be singing and then like beckon the tenor over and the tenor would go, goo, 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 goo. I just thought that was cute. So I love it musically. There's so much going on. I gave it a 9 for lyrics. I mean, I think there's a reason that this song is really highlighted in Topsy Turvy and the whole thing is read out. So we've got that scene with Jim Broadbent just reading out the whole of that song. And that was before the music was in his head as well, which I think, and then Lucy just sits there listening. And it's like, I think that's lovely. And it is lovely. It's so strong lyrically. 9 for narrative importance. Yeah, I mean, it's literally explaining the story. I think it's very important. The only reason I didn't give it 10 is because I think it's quite quick, and maybe you don't quite get every element on it, or element of it on its first listen. That's the only reason I didn't give it a 10. 7 for dramatic impact. I don't think it's the most dramatic or the most funny. I think I gave it a 7 for both of those. I think the other ones just have the edge there, but I do think it is dramatic, and I do think it is funny, but it's more an expositional song that just happens to be incredible musically and lyrically than anything that makes a huge impact. I don't think it's one you particularly remember after the show's done, but I do still absolutely love it.
I enjoyed playing this part when I did it with the Blue Hill Troop 10 years ago now. And
yeah. Was this your number 1, by the way?
This is on my list is my number 2.
Oh, okay. So maybe we have the same number 1.
Maybe we do. I actually went into my ranking expecting this to win.
Interesting. All right. Because I didn't expect it to do well at all. I hadn't really thought about it.
When I started doing GNS when I was 18, this was the first song I ever auditioned with. So it clearly spoke to me. And in fact, the number 1 was the second song I ever auditioned with. So the 2 ones here were like ones that appealed to me from my first beginnings. I've given this a 20 for music. This is my high watermark musically. I think it is the way the pizzicato flows, the woodwind doublings of the melody, the way that when he comes to this melody here, you're in a new key, and you like it's the sort of thing where you're not supposed to, like, you don't notice it, but your brain does. Like, you don't, by the time you get to should forthwith be headed, you're not here anymore. You're here.
Oh yeah. How did we get there? How did we get there?
He does this. He has moments in some shows where like the same phrase happens measures apart in different keys and you barely notice it happened. But again, I think your brain hears like that. Those are different frequencies. They vibrate the fluid in your body differently. So they mean
absolutely.
I have a particular bugbear with, and I expect you'll all agree that he was right to so decree. Just keep going, you nerd.
Yeah. I don't know why there's a pause there.
People love pausing.
Yeah.
Stop.
I do like pausing.
And the show's got to end. Just keep going, man. So I like that. I think it's got, for a singer, it's perfect because you don't have the chorus interrupting you. The chorus like has one little phrase that might as well be the orchestra, and then you come in and join them. And I've given it a 9 for lyrics. Some of the most clever lyrics he's ever had.
Yeah.
A non-connubial sigh. You're right about Jim Broadbent reading those lyrics. If you want to hear,
It's lovely.
hearing that, you just realize, oh, and musically, this is my number one example of Sullivan could have done the same verse again. He could have gone, Sullivan. And so we straight let out on bail a convict from the county jail whose head was next on some pretext condemned to be mown off. Because it's the same sketching. But he's given us a new color to say, but then this happened.
Yeah, that's so right. Yeah.
And so we straight let out on bail.
Yeah.
New idea. And
No, that's never occurred to me that that's a different tune. How funny is that? That's never occurred to me.
which is going to be a common feature for these final two, where I think that the
Yeah.
third, and again, as a singer, I'm so bored when I have to learn the same verse 3 times. So easy to learn this one. I must credit Richard Holmes, who's played this role many times, for giving me the clue on how to not mess up the pre-chorus, I might call it, which is you start with yourself and then you head outward. So it's and I and you and we. So when you're trying to remember, and I expect, and then and you'll allow, and we are right.
Yes.
You, we. And I've never messed this song up.
Yeah.
It seems like it's so easy to mess up, but once you know it, it's like there's
I think that might have coloured my opinion of it in a negative way in the past, because I've maybe seen people perform it who aren't 100% secure with it. But I imagine that if a person was absolutely 100% dead on secure with this number, it would be unstoppable. Absolute dynamite, honestly.
Gary directed me in it 10 years ago, where I was coming in and out of doors all over the stage the whole time. And that is great. It was like
that's really good.
Like, this number is already a workout, and I had to run and do a workout, and I was like, bring it on, let's do it. This is so fun. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it doesn't always feel like you might not remember it at the end. I've given it a 9 for dramatic impact and a 10 for narrative importance, and 8 for comedic value.
Yeah.
So I mean, it has the full marks for music and lyrics for me. I think because of the other categories, the other one has gotten a slight edge. I will say that my top 2, which are the top 2 of our list, have the same score for me. But I felt like when I was weighing this, both for me personally, I saw why the other one was going to be number 1, and because it was number 1 for you, I was like, and it's then that I think that makes the tie, because it was number 4 for you, so it would make sense if we just commit. So we both see the same one as number 1. So we love this song, but there's one song we both have ranked higher. Both of us have ranked the same song number 1, which is, of course, Sir Marmaduke from The Sorcerer.
Sir Marmaduke, my dear young friend Alexis.
On this most happy. So what is it? What is it actually? Can you tell me what it is? Because you know.
It is "Oh, Why Am I Moody and Sad" from RUDDIGORE.
Whoa.
Sir Despard's entrance song. Possibly, I mean, I'm definitely going to say this so far out of, but Scafio and Fantis, that's their entrance song as well. This might be even better than that one, you know. It's really up there. Best entrance song of a character. Like this, nothing beats this dramatically. I'll be very surprised if I find a single song in the canon that will be as dramatic as this one. Even Night Wind Howls, I don't think, is as dramatic as Sir Despard's entrance here. And it's the fact that it runs from Welcome Gentry as well. Diddle diddle bum 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 bum. Yes.
And you've had these. So this was the very first Four-Bear Theatre show.
Yes.
In 2015, I was Despard.
Oh, innocence, listen in time. Avoid an existence of crime. Or you'll be as ugly as I'm. No.
Yeah, you played Despard.
And every night, I had 12 songs to wait in the dressing room.
Yes.
I had the longest wait out of any member of the cast before I.
It's really long.
And any pedants out there would want to know that our Roderick was in the chorus of Act 1. So don't be that person. So I show up and I'm there and I'm twirling my thing and I'm singing the thing. And I always felt like those great moments in a GNS show when you're on stage. I think the patter entrance in Mikado is like this too, where the show is just handed to you.
Yes, absolutely.
And it feels incredible.
It is just, but what's wonderful about this one is that the weight that the orchestra and the chorus are giving to this character coming on stage, and then they finally appear in whichever manner they decide to. And then this song is really, really vulnerable. And I do not see this song, like, it is hammy and it is funny. And I do love it when people play it that way. So that is 100% valid. And I'm in full support of that version of it, just pantomime villain playing up the ham and the comedy of it. Great. But I also do love it when there's an angle of vulnerability in there as well. Oh, why am I moody and sad? And I like to think of him genuinely asking the question as well, because he doesn't really know the answer himself, or because I am. Why am I being sad? Because I am thoroughly, that's the word, because I'm thoroughly bad. Oh, yes. It's also really funny, but it's so tragic as well. I only gave it an 8 for lyrics. I don't know why. I should have given it more. Narrative importance, I gave an 8 too. I think that we go very deep into Despar's character, and that's maybe not quite the same as the auxiliary baritone literally reading you the plot of the show. So I have to appreciate that maybe it's not quite as narratively important as the one before it. But dramatic impact 10, comedic value 7. I gave it a 19 for music. That's where it got a lot of its points from me. But honestly, it ticks absolutely every box for me. It's really, really funny. There are so many opportunities to make jokes and to make jokes out of very dark material, because Sir Despard is a highly damaged character. As I was discussing in my duets video with him and Mad Margaret, like, they are both extremely traumatized individuals. And if you think about what they've had to go through, the fact that he has to endure torture every day since first his brother dies, and then he has to endure torture every single day. So he is messed up in the head, and he has no idea how to be a person. And that's where the comedy in the second act comes from. But just this entrance to me, whereas some people see like a pantomime villain, I see that also, but as well as that, I see this desperate plea to be understood. He really wants the audience and the chorus to understand him. And I don't think any other character does this. His entrance song is saying, don't do what I did. And please empathize with me. I'm telling you who I am here. I'm opening myself up for you. I'm becoming vulnerable, but they're not hearing him. They're responding, but they're not. There's no sympathy there for him. It's so sad.
It was interesting when I put this in the show I did last year with Erica Rome, the solo show I did, where there was no chorus. So this number, there's just dead silence in between.
Oh,
yeah, sure. I've done it as an
sinister
audition, but it just became, oh, why am I moody and sad? And why am I guiltily mad?
Because I'm thoroughly bad. You'll see it at once in my face. Oh, why am I husky and hoarse? It's the workings of conscience, of course. And huskiness stands for remorse. At least it does so in my case.
And just this space.
Oh, that's kind of almost better. Just as if he's just kind of asking the ether and getting no response.
Feels like And so I've given this a 19 for music, which honestly could be a 20. I mean, I just wanted I wanted to give our Great Mikado that top spot.
That's the thing. You want to just give one a 20, don't you? And mine went to the Prince of Monte Carlo.
But for me, this is another case where having the third verse, here we have it in the major key.
Yes. It doesn't seem like it's major, but yeah, it is.
E major from E minor. And then this is, I think, the reason to keep the original overture, which has that kind of cornet solo that plays that theme, whereas that doesn't appear in the more common Jeffrey Toy overture from the 1920s.
Yeah.
I think that I'm probably I can never decide which of the two overtures of RUDDIGORE I would rather perform, and maybe I'll just decide.
I'm not a particular fan of either of them, to be honest.
I think I'll just say I'll do neither and just get the show done quicker. I mean, I don't need the introduction music is fine. So
yeah, it is really funny. I gave it a 7, but I think just because it is dark to a level that even Gilbert, I think, has trouble making it laugh out loud funny.
Absolutely.
But it is funny.
Well, 10 for lyrics. I love the ways in which a Gilbert and Sullivan character can step out a little bit of what's happening and say, this is who I am, this is what's up. Now we have to play our roles. That isn't in your part,
yes.
You know?
And now, if you please, we'll proceed. Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I've said this. Now let's get it done. And I've only ever been able to play this ending half-heartedly. Like as if like the motions I make are correct, but I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. And I actually
why am I sorry, go on.
This ending I've only ever been able to play like when people go ha ha ha, I do struggle with that more.
I don't like that personally.
I've seen full productions where the whole thing is a comedic melodramatic farce.
Yeah,
that's its own thing. But I think you and I are more of an opinion that the character being real is more interesting. And there was a comment when we did the show by a friend of a cast member who said, "What I like the production, but I don't understand. These characters are not supposed to be so real." So we were complimented for what we did in a criticism.
It's funny, isn't it?
The thing that we like, people go, "Oh, these are supposed to be stock characters," and yes, I've certainly seen.
Oh, they can be, yeah, and it's very good when it is done that way. I've seen some incredibly good productions of RUDDIGORE which are very traditional, and I absolutely love that. But I also think it's fun to kind of try and be these people and examine what that would do to you, like what Despard's history would have done to him. I think that's also interesting.
100%.
I love the second verse the best, actually. Oh, why am I husky and hoarse? It's the workings of conscience, of course. And huskiness stands for remorse. At least it does so in my case. There's just something
I'm sorry,
really profound about that.
You are being very diplomatic by saying all interpretations are valid, and I think you're right. But when you read the lyrics, I know where your heart is. And I know that ideally you're going to be more moved by the production where how you just delivered it is how it comes across.
And there's things that, like, as actors you can easily do to just be more real. And like, I mean, what I did there was just emphasize the word conscience. Because rather than going, oh, why am I husky and hoarse? It's the workings of conscience, of course. It's the workings of conscience, of course. Like, sing it as he would speak it. And it automatically just jumps off the page when you actually think, how would I say these words and just sing them in the same way? It just makes the characters suddenly come alive. And it also gives you a perspective as well on just what the character is feeling. Because if you say something in a particular way, it'll kind of evoke an emotional response in your own mind.
Absolutely.
And that's why the best way of learning to be a good actor is just living your life and getting lots of experience.
Oh, for sure. Be a bad baronet once.
Because then when you say words, it'll evoke like almost muscle memory emotion. And that's why I can cry every time I say something sad.
Listen, I lived this character for 2-3 weeks when we did it in London 8 years ago. Gosh, we're a bunch of grandpas.
And I remember when I first cast you as that, you were like surprised I wanted you to play that part. And it wasn't that you didn't think you were able to do it. It wasn't that. But I think you didn't really feel like you connected with it. But then we discussed it for a while. Then you came and you did it. And it really did transform the way I saw you as well.
Goodness. Well, I had just done Robin the year before. Well, actually, it was the year you asked me about it. And I was like, oh, that's the part. Like, I was almost so into that production we had done when I was Robin with Blue Hill that I was like, oh, that's the part I would play in this show. And actually, I had so not connected with any other time I had ever seen Despard for the reasons of it being like a performer who just makes it a hammy joke character and doesn't have any internal life. And the Robin I had just done was all internal life. So the fact that like I didn't think I had permission to do that with Despard was really just the baggage of having seen it a certain way. And you gave me permission to do it the way that I think it would appeal to me. And it stuck with me so much that like it's one of the 2 parts really are probably 2 of my 3 favorite roles in GNS to have ever played. So RUDDIGORE has that very high standing for me. I've given this song. Oh,
RUDDIGORE has such great characters. I mean, honestly, if I'm kind of thinking of my ultimate top 20 characters in GNS, there's going to be at least 5 characters from RUDDIGORE in there.
Oh, maybe yeah. 4. I mean, Ruth, Dora.
Yeah, of course.
Sir Jasper Murgatroyd.
Definitely 3, 100%. Robin, Despard, and Mad Margaret. They're just absolute dynamite characters. Correct. So good.
I have my rest of my scores for this one would be 19 music, 10 lyrics, 10 narrative importance, 10 dramatic impact, 8 comedic value for a total of 57, which gives this a total of 109 on our charts.
Nice, 109 out of 120. And I could have scored it higher. It's funny how I was both too stingy sometimes and too generous. You've really inspired me actually to try and be a bit more varied in my future rankings, because I do think I feel bad sometimes about giving things below a 5 because it makes me think that I'm telling people it's bad.
Well, it's not real. It's a song.
Yeah.
Well, so with He is an Englishman, I started off going, which of these has my least favorite music and which of these has my most favorite music? And I put like a range of, I didn't have any music below a 5. I did have some comedic values at a 1. I did have a lyrics at a 1 for Englishman because Prussian Russian sucks. But I know that might be
it's
point, but anyway, if you start maybe by putting like the biggest and the smallest numbers you could think of on the board and then have a wider range. But again, you got to be consistent because you're going to put all these numbers together later. So
yeah, that's the thing. But I'm also going to consider that maybe some of my earlier videos I hadn't quite kind of figured out exactly what I was doing yet. So I'm totally going to take that into account. And where one character goes above another that I think isn't right, I will certainly like have a look and say, "Ooh,
for sure,
maybe that should be changed."
So we've got our top 24.
That is our top 24, which will be in the description, but don't look at
that now.
You've already watched the video now, so it's not going to be spoiled.
So this is good. This is a good set of songs. What's
it's so strong. Yeah.
What's the next level of the videos? What's coming up?
The next level. So just because I don't know if we're going to edit this in time for the next video to be alto roles or dialogue scenes in HMS Pinafore, because I've already filmed the alto roles video. So today is Saturday and I'm about to release my video of best openings and I have an alto roles filmed. And then I don't know if we have time, we'll put this after that one, but then I can also do dialogue scenes of Pinafore as well. So
you know how we are when we do these Gilbert and Sullivan shows. So when you said today is Saturday, I thought, but this is Saturday and you have been following me about ever since Monday.
I'd like the usual half holiday.
Yeah, I feel that way. You know, we've been planning this for
We're such nerds. Like whenever, like in one of my in the video that I'm about to release, I'm saying how something was cut short, and I just went, "Oh, cut short!" I can't even help it. I mean, I do genuinely have Tourette's, but like sometimes I just gonna say like Gianessisms.
Well, you know, a pasteboard nose would do it.
A pasteboard nose would do it.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. What else do we say? Is it the end?
Yeah, that is the end. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this and really like this format, let us know. Tell me if you would like William Remmers back to help consult on future videos. Let us know whose opinion you agreed with the most, you know, where we disagreed, particularly on the Pinafore numbers. I believe those were the most divisive ones.
I feel bad.
And that tie, like tell us where you land on that tie as well. And press the subscribe button. It's just there. And it takes one moment. It won't interrupt the video. You've not signed your life away. It's just a thing you can do to make me feel good. So please do it. That's the noise of the subscribing.
Yeah. I'm going to stop
He's
recording.
Good. Oh, wait. Because I haven't said goodbye. But I will see you for the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Nelle seguenti insolite circostanze.
Great Mikado, virtuous man, went in to rule of men, began the soul to try a plan whereby young men might best be stayed. When he to rule of men, began the soul to try a plan where men, a love connubial, should forthwith be beheaded. And I am right, and you are right, and all is right as I can be. And you are right.